Commissioners, we are live and recording.
Thank you, Troy, and good afternoon to everybody. I know that we're uploading and getting the tech pulled together to make sure that folks online can log in if IT just wants to let us know when we're ready to go. Well, again, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our Tuesday, November 25th, 2025 Board of County Commissioners Land Use Meeting and Public Hearing. I'm going to ask you to all rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Born and unborn.
Thank you. Attorney Garcia, do we have certification of the agenda today?
Yes, sir. The County Attorney's Office reviewed all items on the agenda. You have appropriate jurisdiction over this matter, and appropriate posting has been made.
Thank you, Attorney Garcia. And then do any commissioners have disclosures for items on this agenda today?
No, sir.
No.
You know, I do have an item I have to disclose. I did receive a text message from a Lauren Grubaugh Thomas with regard to the item on the agenda today. I did identify with her that ex parte communications with quasi-judicial commissioners in a quasi-judicial hearing is against the law. She advised me that she was not aware of that, and I will not make any representations other than that, but just disclose that on the record that I did receive that communication.
And Commissioner, do you believe that information will make you biased in this matter?
I do not.
And you have no personal gain in this matter?
I do not. Okay, thank you. So with that, we're going to move on to item 2, which is our land use meeting agenda items. There are no items under item 2 today, so we will move on to item 3, which is our public hearing agenda items. Item 3A is Sterling Ranch Plan Development 13th Amendment, Major Plan Development Amendment, Project File ZR 2025-009. And we have Brett Thomas, Chief Planner, presenting for staff. Hi, Brett.
Hi. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brett Thomas for Planning Services. The request is a major plan development amendment for Sterling Ranch Plan Development. The project number is ZR 2025-009. The applicant representative, Susan Beckman, is present on behalf of the Sterling Ranch Development Company. The request is a major plan development amendment to the Sterling Ranch PD to revise section S12 pertaining to dedication of land for school sites, to update maps within the PD regarding the number and location of potential public school sites, and to relocate Special Area 1 School SA1 planning area. The intent of the major PD amendment process is to encourage innovative and creative design and to facilitate a mix of use in the development of balanced community, including residential, business, commercial, recreational, open, and other selected secondary uses in accordance with section 2467-101 state statute. Major PD amendment process begins with submittal of an application. Following a review period by referral agencies and the public, notice is given for public hearings before the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners. Comments from residents were received through the review process and were included as attachments to the staff report, an addendum to the staff report, and also provided prior to this afternoon's hearing. Public Works Engineering provided comments related to the availability of adequate infrastructure in place to serve public schools. The applicant's response to engineering is included in the staff report. Douglas County School District stated it opposes the proposed amendments to section 12A and 12B and notes the amendment alters the school district's rights with regard to the development of future school sites and will undermine its ability to provide residents of Sterling Ranch with education available to other district students. The district urged commissioners to vote no or alternatively postpone consideration until there has been sufficient time to engage the school district, community, and other partners in this discussion. A response from the applicant's attorney is included as an attachment in the staff report. A response from the school district's attorney is included as an attachment to the handout you received earlier today. Planning Commission heard the application at its November 3rd public hearing. The Planning Commission discussed the difference between charter and public schools, the ability of DCSD to sell unused land, the scope of the proposed changes to the PD commitments, and whether the amendment will adversely affect public interest. 22 members of the public, including a representative from the school district, testified at the Planning Commission hearing. Testimony included statements in support of providing options for all types of public schools, assertions that the amendment would erode PD school commitments to public school development, statements in support of keeping the current dedication requirements in the PD, and assertions of a lack of transparency in the process. There was a tie vote of 4-4 on a motion to recommend denial by the Planning Commission. With a tie vote, the amendment goes to the board without a recommendation from the Planning Commission. As background, the Sterling Ranch PD was approved by the board in July of 2013. This is the 13th amendment to the original PD document. The applicant conveyed a 12-acre school site in filing 1 to Douglas County School District, to Douglas County in 2015. The site was subsequently conveyed to the school district, which is proceeding with plans to develop an elementary school that will serve approximately 750 students. In 2025, the applicant conveyed a 26-acre school site to the John Adams Academy Charter School for development of an elementary school, middle school, and high school that will serve approximately 1,000 students. John Adams Academy is proceeding with plans to develop the site at this time. The Sterling Ranch PD, indicated by the red star, is generally located in the northwest portion of the county. Sterling Ranch PD is located in the Chatfield urban area, as designated on the 2040 Douglas County Comprehensive Master Plan. The Sterling Ranch PD, outlined in red, is generally west of the intersection of US Highway 85 and Titan Parkway, more specifically west of Moore Road, south of Chatfield State Park, east of Rampart Range Road, and north of agriculturally zoned land in the Chatfield Valley. This is an aerial of the Sterling Ranch PD, again outlined in red. Filings 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 are visible in the east portion of the map, south of Titan Road, and primarily north of Waterton Road. Filing 3 is visible in the southwest portion of the PD and the vicinity of Waterton Road and Rampart Range Road. This slide depicts proposed amended text related to schools, specifically the commitments in sections S12A, dedication, and section S12B, cash in lieu. The applicant proposes to replace the system for calculating student generation in acres to be dedicated per student within section S12A. In place of that system, the applicant would commit to dedicating 110 acres of land for public schools based on a maximum of 12,050 units at full build-out of the PD. The revision to section S12A also proposes the applicant will identify land for a school site at the time of preliminary plan, but land for a school site will not be transferred to the county until provision by the county or public school of an approved 5-year capital plan or bond plan demonstrating the ability to fund and construct a school on a given site. The amendment proposes to revise the commitments in section S12B of the PD regarding payment of cash in lieu of school land dedication. Currently, the commitment refers to section 1004 of the subdivision resolution to identify the process for determining the amount of cash in lieu payment. The amendment proposes that in the Sterling Ranch PD, the amount of any cash in lieu payment shall be based on the fair market value of the land that has been identified as a school site in the preliminary plan. This slide depicts the proposed red lines to the PD map. The amendment updates the land use plan maps to reflect the applicant's proposal for the location of school sites. The school site selections within filing 1 and filing 6 are identified as a 12-acre and 26-acre school site, respectively. School site proposed within preliminary plan 7 is identified as a 12-acre school site. Other locations previously identified as potential school sites are removed. Specific references to elementary, middle, and high schools are replaced with a reference to school site. The Special Area 1, SA1 planning area is proposed to be relocated to the northwest of its current location within the PD. The approval criteria for a major PD amendment request are set forth in section 15 and listed on the slide. The approval criteria are discussed on pages 4 and 5 of the staff report. Staff has evaluated the major PD amendment request in accordance with section 15 of the zoning resolution. Should the board find that the approval criteria have been met, staff proposes the following conditions be considered in this motion. Condition number 1, prior to recordation, all minor technical corrections will be made to the plan development document to the satisfaction of Douglas County. Condition number 2, all commitments and promises made by the applicant or the applicant's representative during the public hearing and/or agreed to in writing and included in the public record have been relied upon by the Board of County Commissioners in approving the application. Therefore, such approval is conditioned upon the applicant's full satisfaction of all such commitments and promises. Section 1522.08 of the zoning resolution sets forth the parameters for the board's determination on the amendment request as noted on the slide. This concludes staff's presentation. I'm available to take questions on the staff report this time. Otherwise, Susan Beckman's here on behalf of Sterling Ranch Development Company.
Great, thank you, Brett. Any questions for staff?
None at this time.
Well, I have several questions, but I'll reserve those following the applicant's presentation. Ms. Beckman, do you want to make your presentation?
Brett, if you'd go ahead and pull it up. And then is there a remote here?
Yeah. I think going down to go forward.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Brock Smethels, Smethills. I am president of Sterling Ranch Development Company. Susan will be doing the presentation, but I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce who is here to present today. We have myself, Susan Beckman, who is the Director of Zoning and Rezoning, Kevin Jonk, who is the Director of Entitlement, Curtis Davidson with PCS Group, Abby Kirkbride with Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck, Sarah Kieswitter, who's Assistant Principal with the charter school, since there were lots of questions with the Planning Commission related to charter schools and how they function. We felt it was appropriate to have someone from a charter school to be able to answer those questions. And then also there were several questions surrounding the dedication of land to John Adams. So we have Ellie Reynolds and Kim Gilmartin to also answer questions from the board as part of the application team on charter schools. And with that, I will turn it over to Susan Beckman.
Thank you, Brock. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Susan Beckman, the Zoning and Rezoning Director for the Sterling Ranch Development Company, 8155 Piney River Avenue, Suite 200, Sterling Ranch, Colorado, 80125. This afternoon, I'm here to present the 13th Amendment to the Sterling Ranch PD. It is part of a larger effort to update the maps and language in the PD, reflecting 15 years of progress in a changing world and supporting the next 20 years of development in Sterling Ranch. This is a paragraph from the Douglas County School District. I think it's the third referral letter. I know there's been many. I think this one was submitted late last week. The school district wishes to build upon our prior collaborative efforts with the applicant to ensure that the present and future students of Sterling Ranch and Douglas County maintain access to the world-class education currently available to all Douglas County students. Sterling Ranch wants to build upon the prior collaboration efforts also with the school district. We want public schools. We've been working for years with the school district, and we've been major funders. The Smethels family have been major funders of both the mill levy elections and the bond elections. For one of the largest school districts in Colorado to threaten a law school, the next paragraph, in the 13th Amendment, if the 13th Amendment is approved by the BOCC, the school district will have no choice but to consider the legal obligations to ensure access to the school sites necessary to serve the future students of Sterling Ranch. For one of the largest school districts in Colorado to threaten a lawsuit in a referral letter is intimidating to the applicant, no doubt. And to threaten the BOCC with legal actions if they vote on this application, they're pretty strong words. It's a chilling effect. And to add to this language of a lawsuit, it's being talked about that the school district is going to sue us all over social media. There has been so much misinformation and inaccuracies that have been repeated. So I wanted to just take a step back before I even start my presentation and talk a little bit about how we got here. I have a document I'd like to hand out. If I could just give this to the commissioners.
You may approach. If you want to hand that to Council, he'll label it as an exhibit for us. Thank you.
also copies of this memo term sheet in the back. You know, I received this document from Butler Snow that talks about, in effect, these revisions will prevent the school district from constructing any new schools in Sterling Ranch beyond the one breaking ground next year. I just read that as we got that as we walked in the door today. It was never our intent to stop construction of any new schools in Sterling Ranch. We're willing to give significant acreage, and that was never our intent. That's why I'd like to have you look at this document. This was presented to Sterling Ranch from Aaron Kane. It was given to our attorneys, Brock Smithel, a paralegal, and myself, from the school superintendent in 2023. You can refer to this in public testimony today. This is the last best guide that we have to clarify future land dedication in Sterling Ranch in collaboration with the school district. This is the foundation of the land use application for the 13th Amendment. The two are very, very close. And we'll walk through that, the similarities in this letter and what we did with the 13th Amendment. The term sheet provided additional details regarding dedication of land to the district for construction of school facilities. Specifically, the site dedication agreement addresses timing, due diligence, general location, and total acreage of dedicated sites, among other issues. So in your packet, I have kind of identified the issues that we'd like to walk through. They're similar to the PD 13th Amendment. On page 1, dedication of no more than 109.50 acres that is what we're requesting, 110 acres in our PD amendment. 2, Sterling Ranch will notify the district when a preliminary plan and a conceptual school site is identified. That is what we are asking for in the PD Amendment 13, and actually it is what we do today. We identify the school site in a preliminary plan. Number 3, an approved new school site will need to show a need based on student generation. That is what we're asking for in the 13th Amendment. Number 4, upon identifying a school site for construction, the district will have no more than 5 years to dedicate funding, and once funding is approved, Sterling Ranch will proceed to final plat. That is what we're asking for in the 13th Amendment. Number 5, if a school district cannot obtain funding in 5 years, they will seek out a charter school. The charter school will receive a school site. That is what we're asking for in the 13th Amendment. And number 6, if a charter school is not selected and approved and there is no district funding, Sterling Ranch can pay cash in lieu, and the total acreage will be deducted from the total acreage of land dedication requirement. That is what we are asking for in the 13th Amendment. These are not new concepts that we are talking about. We have talked at length for many years with the school district about the concepts that are in the 13th Amendment. During this collaborative effort, there have been no discussions about the terms of this agreement. We're going to prevent schools from being built in Sterling Ranch. That letter doesn't say that. It doesn't talk about crippling the school district, or that it was a violation of state law, or that the sky was falling. That isn't what is in that letter. Yes, there have been some changes in the last year, specifically John Adams. Sometimes it's the elephant in the room, but John Adams Charter School is an elementary, a junior high, and a high school that is currently being built in Sterling Ranch, and we're very excited about both our schools being built in Sterling Ranch. It is not a district charter school, but the school board did support the release of the school and clearing the path for it to be approved with the State Charter Institute. The total number of acres, cash in lieu requirement, the timing of the identification of school sites, the timing of the dedication of land, the requirement of a 5-year funding plan, the option of charter schools receiving land, all of those issues were discussed in that letter that Aaron Kane sent to Brock Smithels. The sky was not falling, and it is not falling today. These concepts are wrapped into the 13th Amendment. We want schools in Sterling Ranch, and I'm going to move right on to the presentation now. Sterling Ranch is a thriving, safe, and popular community in Douglas County. We're the #1 best-selling master plan community in the Denver metro area for 5 years in a row now. So we're really excited about that. We, as you know, are zoned for a maximum of 12,050 homes across 3,400 acres, and that includes 1,300 acres dedicated to open space, wildlife corridors, and parks. Homes occupied, 2,995, which means we have almost 10,000 residents in Sterling Ranch. We are a growing community with schools, a library, and commercial on the way, and today we're at about 25% build out. Current public school students are 1,045. 22% of the students in Sterling Ranch attend charter schools. Our future is bright for families, quality of life, and home ownership. That is what we believe in: home ownership, vibrant neighborhoods, great public schools. That is the American dream. In Sterling Ranch, we are fortunate to have 2 tuition-free public schools coming to our community in the next 2 years. Your Planning Commission unanimously approved the location and extents for both schools in the last few months. The location and extent process ensures adequate infrastructure. So let's look at this map. There we go. The Douglas County School District is building a K-6 elementary school currently referred to as School 51. That's Titan Road. So it's kind of to the north of our existing development. This school was funded with a $700 million bond approved by voters in 2024. We're very excited about that. We helped fund that election. The school will accommodate 750 students from Solstice Development and a portion of Sterling Ranch, and it is scheduled to open in 2027. It is sited on a beautiful 12-acre site located at the entryway of our community. The land was donated by Sterling Ranch to the county in 2015. The county commissioners transferred that land to Douglas County School District this year. The John Adams School site is a tuition-free public charter school funded by a $16 million JAA bond. It was approved earlier this year by the State of Colorado Charter School Institute. At full build-out, this school will serve over 1,000 students in Sterling Ranch. It will include an elementary school, a junior high, and a high school. The site is located on a beautiful 26-acre parcel just south of Waterton Road, donated by Sterling Ranch. So right there is Waterton Road, just to catch your bearings. Moore Road, Waterton Road. The school is currently accepting enrollment for the 2026 school year. 80% of the letters of intent are from the Sterling Ranch community. To support these vital additions, Sterling Ranch has contributed over $16 million of value through donations of land and infrastructure, as well as waivers of fees for these 2 school properties. The generous investments underscores our dedication to fostering a thriving community of high-quality public education. But that is not all. Sterling Ranch voluntarily, not all developers do, our master plan community does, gives the school district an additional capital mitigation fee of $1,500 for every single family home and $750 for every townhome. To date, we have paid the school district almost $5 million. So that's about $22 million so far for these properties. On this map, you can also see another beautiful school site. This is Preliminary Plan 7 school site that was identified in a preliminary plan. We've identified, this is what is in the PD Amendment 13, that we will identify a school site during the preliminary plan. With the changes we're making in the 13th Amendment, the site will be dedicated to a public school once the need and funding are demonstrated, and that can occur before or at the time of plat. To develop a preliminary plan, just so you know, could take up to 10 years, and having a plat approved and built out can take many, many, many years. So this, actually, the process of identifying the school site in the preliminary plan and making sure that we had funding and need were followed both in the School 51 site and the John Adams site. This is the process that we're asking for in the 13th Amendment. Then we have the future school site. Now, this is a potential placeholder. I do want to point out this area right here are special character zones. When Sterling Ranch was approved in 2011, that area was identified as a sports center, a sports complex. Well, we don't, now with Zebulon, we don't need more sports complexes up north, so we are redoing the map there through PD amendments also, and we just moved that partial 60-acre school site. That is a placeholder. The intent is at the time of preliminary plan, we will decide in the town center where a school site should be located. But just as a reminder, that is a potential school site. That is not where the school site will end up. The 13th Amendment represents a renewed commitment to providing exceptional public schools for students in Sterling Ranch. It aligns our PD with evolving circumstances, including the addition of John Adams Academy, which will serve 1,000 students, and shifts in demographics. We'll talk a little bit about that later. It eliminates outdated language, obsolete land dedication tables, clarifies that the BOCC is the land use authority. Sterling Ranch has a requirement in our PD that is unique to us. Other developers in Douglas County do not have this. No other master plan development has this requirement. It allows the school district to have land use authority. We would like to go back to the Douglas County zoning resolution and state law and have the BOCC be our land use authority. It identifies 110 acres of land. It specifies the time and location of the northern site. It documents a process for dedication of school land that aligns with the term sheet that I handed out earlier. Aligns appraisal language for cash and lieu with the Sterling Ranch school dedication language and state law. And it facilitates a development of schools in Sterling Ranch that will change of circumstances with the arrival of a charter school. Because we know we've had a change of circumstance. The Douglas County subdivision resolution requires a minimum acreage of 10 acres. I just want you to know that this is what your subdivision resolution requires for each elementary school. 25 acres of land for a junior high and 40 acres of land for a senior high. That equates to 95 acres for total land dedication. Sterling Ranch has agreed to more. The 13th Amendment cleans up our PD map, which is used for general planning purposes. The PD amendment removes specific titles such as elementary, junior high, or high school from the identified school site area on the map, whether mapped or already under construction, and simply labels them as school sites. Some of the referral letters from the school district and the community were very upset about this change. This was a technical fix. There was no ill intent. So we have some potential in 2011, probably 2010, and it's very clear up here. These were potential school sites. When we did the preliminary plans and the final plats, they moved. So you have an X here. That moves to the School 51 school site. So you have an X here. That was a potential school site. Now we have an actual school site for John Adams right there. There was a potential school site there. There will not be a school there. And this is an actual school site for the PP7 school site. And then the potential school site up north, we just named it school site. We could put elementary, junior high, high school, but that was a technical fix that we just threw out there to clean up the map. The PD amendment specifies that the final boundaries of the northern school site will be determined at preliminary plan to allow flexibility in size, location, and timing to best meet the needs of our future. So again, our town center has a lot of land. These are the special character zones that were tied to the sports center. That is not, we're not going to have a sports center in that area. And so we're redoing some special character zones. We just put that up there as a placeholder. Sterling Ranch wants schools. We don't want to pay cash in lieu instead of dedicating land and have that money spent by another developer to build a school in their development. We want schools, but we need to clean up our PD language. The cash in lieu language that we are requesting aligns us with the park dedication language in our PD and with state law. The Ninth Amendment, which was approved probably about 4 months ago, clarified that the Sterling Ranch appraisal for community park dedications will comply with state law and be appraised for fair market value. The 13th Amendment would like to allow the continuity in this language throughout our PD to avoid confusion. I'll read from page 2 of the Brownstein memo. The PD requires that cash in lieu payment pertaining to school sites must be based on full market value. That's what our PD says. It is impossible to comply with full market value because it is not a recognized term in the appraisal industry. And fair market value is a term used universally in appraisals. You get a fair market value appraisal. Therefore, Sterling Ranch is not able to provide appraisals based on full market value. So we've already changed that in the area of parks in our PD amendment, and we would like that to do that in schools. And so we hope that you would support that. Again, we have been working with Douglas County School District for years. We've agreed on the 110 acres. This is a term sheet and also a referral letter that talks about 112 acres, 110 acres. And that everyone has known that that is based on the number of students that we are generating. The 1,045 students that we have currently in Sterling Ranch, what the school district's tables, their student generating tables would say is that we should have 3 times that much, 2.5 times that much. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in this presentation. The PD amendment identifies a total of 110 acres. That's what the 13th PD amendment does. To be dedicated when there is funding. Sterling Ranch wants to clarify that we get credit for land dedication for a public school and for John Adams, a state charter public school. At this time, I would like to bring up Kevin Jonk. He's the Director of Entitlements and Engineering at Sterling Ranch, and he's going to discuss the demographic shifts in Douglas County and Sterling Ranch. This information is really important to understand why we are amending our PD. The planning tables that the school district is using to determine the amount of land that a developer should be required to donate, they are broken. So I'll hand it over to Kevin, and then I'll come back up.
Thank you, Ms. Beckman. Welcome.
Thank you, Susan. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Kevin Jonk, J-O-H-N-K. I am the Director of Entitlements and Engineering at Sterling Ranch Development Company. Now, I'm going to take the next few slides to talk about some of the main concerns of the school district in their referral review for this PD amendment. They have expressed that land dedication needs to be sufficient to keep up with the student generation created by new development. The district addresses student generation using a series of tables and charts that calculate how many students will come out of new development, newly constructed neighborhoods. You'll see a sample of these charts on the screen. Now, this is pulled directly from the district's development standards on their website. Now, I'm not going to ask you to read through the entire series of charts. I just want to convey that these calculations are very meticulous and painstaking. And while they may have been accurate at some point in the past, the numbers they generate, unfortunately, do not reflect real-world enrollment patterns, and it's not even close. If you plug in the data for Sterling Ranch based on our current build-out today into the district's charts, the calculation would tell you that right now, Sterling Ranch should have about 2,600 students. But what does the actual data say? Today, we actually have only 1,000 students. Oh, and that number, 1,000, 1,045, that came directly from the school district. This is their data. But let's get back to the concern about adequate land dedication. I've taken the district's generator tables and applied it to the full build-out of Sterling Ranch and compared it to the projection of our actuals. You'll see the difference between what the district tables say we need and what their actual data says. Actual data says about 102 acres. The district has in fact acknowledged this in their November 21st letter. They agree that the 110 acres is indeed the correct acreage. So yes, Sterling Ranch absolutely wants to have sufficient land dedication to keep up with student generation. But the current method of determining student generation overestimates by 2.5 times compared to actual data. We want to make sure there's enough school land, absolutely. But we don't want to unnecessarily dedicate 2.5 times more than what the data says we need. Why wouldn't we dedicate that extra land? We've received a lot of community feedback saying that residents bought their homes on the promise that there would be public schools on the land we dedicate, and that if we dedicated the land, a school would get built by the district. So why wouldn't we dedicate this extra land? Because there's overwhelming evidence that the schools are not being built on the land they're receiving. Turns out there are dozens of sites, almost 50 of them, in the district's land inventory, where schools have been promised, but the majority of them have been sitting dormant for years, sometimes decades. Even worse, many of those sites are being sold off to other entities, including private developers. I'll walk through just a couple of quick examples. There's a site in Highlands Ranch near Redstone Park. The land was dedicated. No doubt residents bought expecting a school coming. Instead, it was sold off years later to build million-dollar homes. There's a site in the Crystal Valley where, again, the land was dedicated and residents no doubt were expecting a school. And I've pasted some of the language from the agreement that just this year it was conveyed back to a developer for more homes. Now it's sites, like different, zoning constraints and, need analysis. But, the punchline is that, there are residents who bought on the promise of a school and none was delivered. So while these are just, a couple of examples, there are so many of these sites that residents are buying on the promise that they're going to have a neighborhood school, but instead the goalpost gets shifted without the input of the community. Now, this is why we don't want to dedicate 2.5 times more land than the district's data says we need. They should not function as a land bank that promises schools and years later sells to outside developers instead. Land dedication should match the district's intention and ability to build schools. With that, I'll give it back to Susan Beckman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jonk.
Thank you, Kevin. So this is probably the question that is the biggest question in the whole entire PD 13th Amendment. There's a lot of technical fixes, and there's a lot of things that we actually all agree on in the 13th PD Amendment. But the question of should tuition-free public charter schools be considered equally regarding land dedication hangs out there, and it's a disagreement between us and the district. Their view is that Sterling Ranch will dedicate acres of land only to Douglas County School District schools within the Sterling Ranch PD. What our amendment says is that Sterling Ranch will dedicate acres of land for public schools within the Sterling Ranch PD. The planned development identifies 110 acres of land. Sterling Ranch seeks clarification that we will receive equal credit for dedicating land to both School 51 and John Adams. From the Brownstein memo, Article 10 of the Douglas County Subdivision Resolution governs public land dedications to the county. There is no requirement that land must be dedicated for use by the school district, provided it is suitable for school facilities. JAA is a public school, and under applicable regulations, Sterling Ranch community should receive credit for this land. There has been a change of circumstance, and change is inevitable. The school board that approved the referral letters that we've received over the last couple of weeks from the school district, because of the election, is not the board that we'll work with next month. In the last 10 years, Sterling Ranch has worked with 5 superintendents, 3 interim superintendents, and a new school board every few years. It has been a turbulent environment. Change is inevitable in this environment. In our community, a group of parents got together to form a charter school. The State Charter School Institute approved the John Adams School that is opening in 2026. It shows signs of being wildly popular. Charter schools in Douglas County in general are wildly popular. The school has over 1,000 acres of land that sit unused throughout Douglas County. And finally, the aging population, decline in birth rates all impact the amount of land needed, the size of schools, and lead to the declining enrollment that we are seeing in Highlands Ranch. All of these changes have caused us to reflect how do we best serve the community in Sterling Ranch, and it's why we bring to you today the 13th PD amendment, and we would ask for your support. I'd like to bring up now Sarah Keyswetter, Assistant Principal, Twin Peaks Charter School, to talk on this slide. During the Planning Commission meeting, we had several questions regarding the inclusionary nature of charter schools, so we thought it would be good to bring an expert to the hearing and allow her to testify.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Hello, good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Sarah Keyswetter. There are so many E's, K-I-E-S-E-W-E-T-T-E-R. And my family and I are excited about the opportunity to bring our time, talents, resources, and tax dollars to the Sterling Ranch community. We're in the process of moving to the South Denver metro area, and we were thrilled to learn that a K-12 public classical charter school was coming to one of the neighborhoods we've been looking at. My children have all attended classical charter schools, and we want to move into a community that provides that same educational model. I'm here to speak today, however, about my experience as a teacher and administrator in classical charter schools. I was asked to speak as someone who has over a decade of experience in classical and charter schools, and as someone who specifically works with families and students with exceptional needs within those public charter schools. My claim is simple, and my experience and professional career evidence the truth that public classical charter schools serve all students who enter their doors. Teachers and administrators work tirelessly and collaboratively to ensure classical for all. To do this great work, and this is where my testimony comes to light, one must be able to read and comprehend difficult, rigorous texts. I believe and have spent my entire career advancing the notion that literacy is a fundamental human right, one that every teacher and school leader has the ethical imperative to protect and foster. I would like to tell you about some of the work that I've done to meet the needs of all of our students. As a teacher in the classroom, I became an expert in teaching reading and writing. I taught a number of students who lacked foundational reading skills, and I made it my business to research and implement best practices aligned with the science of reading to help close those gaps. And it worked. Under my care and with their own hard work and perseverance, my students were among the highest achievers in English language arts on standardized assessments and benchmarks. As an administrator, I worked to create an MTSS infrastructure and reproducible systems that helps to identify struggling students and provide intervention classes for those students. I created the professional development that teachers need to conduct small group instruction and regularly coached on both math and reading classes. I've worked with teachers to use data-driven instruction intentionally, and I've helped them to use that data to inform Tier 1 lessons that meet a wide range of student needs. I regularly coach on curriculum development and differentiation, and I'm currently working with the middle and high school team to develop lesson plan templates that incorporate the most common accommodations for our heritage speakers and those on 504 and individualized education plans. The current school that I work in has a high number of at-risk students and students with exceptional needs, and I actively work with the leadership team to continue the public service we're doing every day. At the heart of classical education is the foundational notion that every child who enters our building is a person of incalculable worth, and that human connection and exceptional teaching skills are at the heart of every lesson. That's Classical for All. It's been my life's work, and it's been the work that I do with teachers and administrators every day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'd now like to bring up Abby Kirkbride from Brownstein Hyatt, Farber, and Schreck to discuss land use authority and charter school land dedication.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Abby Kirkbride, Kirkbride, 2100 16th Street, Unit 202, Denver, Colorado, 80202. I am legal counsel to Sterling Ranch, and I am here to speak about a couple of the legal aspects of this discussion. By this time, you have seen written communications both supporting and opposing the amendment. But at its most essential, your decision is going to come down to two questions, one of which I think Susan articulated well, which is, one, what is the role of the county relative to the school land dedication process? And two, can land dedicated to a public charter school be counted toward a development's land dedication requirements under applicable state and county regulations? On the first question, the Commission is charged under state statute with adopting subdivision regulations that govern sites and land areas for schools necessary to serve proposed development. There is no question as to the county's central role in dictating when and how such land is dedicated. As an example of the breadth of the county's authority in these matters, the state statute on subdivisions says that land or payments in lieu may be directed directly to a school district. However, the county can also take those sites or payments and hold them in trust to be conveyed through periodic conveyances to those other entities. And that just as an example of the county having a wide variety of options. While Douglas County has chosen to operate a certain way in the past, there is no reason it cannot change its approach moving forward. In contrast, while the school district has an obviously critical role on issues related to the provision of public education, it should not have the determining voice as a referral agency in this process. And related to this point, we would like to register our concern with a few comments in the staff report that was updated for this meeting dated November 12th, in which a portion of the report labeled staff analysis inserted verbiage directly from the school district's opposition comments to the amendment. Sterling Ranch would just note that in its 15 years of processing entitlements in Douglas County, they can't recall an instance where staff has substituted opposition referral comments for its own analysis. As noted, the commission and not the district is the determining body here, and we would ask the county to maintain its central decision-making role in considering approval of the amendment. The second key question related to the amendment is whether the dedication of land to a charter school, a public charter school, can count toward a development's public land dedication requirements. The school district argues in a letter that we just saw today and in other forums that only land dedicated to the school district meets this requirement. But this is an overly narrow reading of the statute and of the county's regulations. There are no such limitations in the state subdivision statute. The statute contemplates land dedicated for schools to the county, to a school district, or the public. Within these parameters, the county has the authority to craft its own regulations, including making dedication of land to public charter schools a way to fulfill those dedication requirements. Further, and because Susan noted this, I won't repeat it, but the county subdivision resolution requiring that land be dedicated for school facilities, but not specifically for Douglas County School District facilities. We think that's an important point from the county governance perspective. And then finally, a critical point that seems to be lost in some of this discussion is that a charter school, a public charter school, is a public school. The district argues that land dedications to charter schools are not for the benefit of public education, but charter schools are part of the public education ecosystem, and a development should not be penalized for having charter schools in its boundaries. In conclusion, from my remarks, the amendment is legal and appropriate, and as will be demonstrated when Susan comes back up, it does meet the applicable PD approval criteria. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Abby. And now to the approval criteria. The Sterling Ranch 13th PD amendment meets and exceeds all approval criteria. And I'd like to walk through these and kind of wrap up my comments today. But it's really important because you will be making decisions today based on the list of approval criteria. 1520-01 from the Douglas County Zoning Resolution. Whether the amendment is consistent with the development standards, commitment, and overall intent of the planned development. Sterling Ranch continues our commitment to seeing school sites built within our community and to expand public services accordingly. Sterling Ranch has always been and will continue to be committed to providing school choice and public schools for our community. This aligns with the overall intent of our planned development since the very beginning. 1520-02, whether the amendment is consistent with the intent, efficient development, and preservation of the entire planned development. Defining and committing to the locations of and acreages of the future school site as depicted on the land use plan will provide a clearer vision and roadmap for school dedication in Sterling Ranch, and we desperately need that clearer vision. This will make the development as a master plan community more efficient and effective. 1520-03, whether the amendment will adversely affect the public interest enjoyment of the adjacent land. The PD amendment will not adversely affect the public interest. Instead, it will provide for the needs of Douglas County students, Sterling Ranch, and all public schools, charter and neighborhood schools. 1520-04, whether the sole purpose of the amendment is to confer a special benefit upon an individual. The purpose of this proposed amendment is not to confer a special benefit upon an individual. Instead, it will confirm that all public schools are treated equitably in Sterling Ranch. 1520-05, for applications proposing an increase in density of allowed land uses, which we're not asking for any increase in density, we would need a new water packet. But since we have no additional density, I just want to confirm that Dominion Water and Sanitation District will provide renewable water and wastewater services to all the schools in Sterling Ranch. 1520-06, whether the public facilities and services necessary to accommodate the proposed development will be available concurrently with the impacts of such development. The PD amendment updates ensures that the school sites or the funding are available for Sterling Ranch community to build schools at the appropriate time, and that vacant land will not sit idle in our community for many, many, many years and then sold to another developer. We also have South Metro Fire that will provide services, Douglas County Sheriff's Department, Xcel Energy, Dominion Water, and the Community Authority Board will all provide services to public schools in Sterling Ranch. 1520-07, whether the roadway capacity necessary to maintain the adopted roadway level of service for the proposed development will be available concurrently with the impacts of such development. We did get a small comment from engineering, so I'm going to bring up Kevin Jonk, our Sterling Ranch engineer, and he's going to address those comments.
Yes, we received this response from engineering staff during the review period. Engineering wants to ensure that future school sites have adequate infrastructure to serve them. As such, the appropriate planning needs to be done far enough in advance to make sure the site works. We received plenty of valuable feedback from the district and the community on the proposed locations that you've seen in this presentation and on the PD document itself. Suggestions such as, the northern school site, for instance, should not be located in a floodplain or any kind of other hazardous location. Sterling Ranch agrees 100%. If we identify a school site that does not have adequate infrastructure or has a floodplain on it, it's no good for us either. We need to either adjust the location or make it developable to the satisfaction of Douglas County. So to be clear, those sites identified in this PD amendment have the flexibility to shift to accommodate these concerns. Now, county engineering has suggested in their comment that this analysis should occur at the final plat stage of entitlement. Well, we'd like to take that goal a step further and identify the sites at the preliminary plan stage of entitlement, which is one step earlier in the process. Now, this is because the Douglas County subdivision resolution mandates already that I generate the engineering reports, calculations, grading plans, utility studies, et cetera, at the preliminary plan stage. So the information and analysis will be available to identify a school site in an ideal location. Now, we did receive a valuable comment during the Planning Commission from a resident who is also an engineering professional that suggested by doing this one step early, we'd be planning things out too early, and that we'd actually forget about the site and thus leave it vulnerable to not having adequate infrastructure. So I want to also be clear that identifying a site at preliminary plan does not mean we pick a site and forget about it. I've spoken to county engineering, and we both agree that we should identify a site early and check in every step of the way through entitlement. We called it the school site feasibility continuum, and that is the goal with our proposal. We want to set up everyone for success.
Thank you, Mr. Junk.
Thank you, Kevin. Once again, I'll just point out that the 13th Amendment meets and exceeds all approval criteria for the PD. So I'd like to thank you for your time this afternoon. On behalf of the Sterling Ranch team, I'd like to ask you to
I'm going
vote.
to pause. We do not allow signs in our hearing room, and I'm going to remind the audience here today, we are going to maintain order in this room. We do have our sheriff's office here. Any disruption of a business matter in our county hearing room can result in criminal processing from a county perspective, so I'm going to remind you not to do that, ma'am. I'm going to ask you one time to drop your sign, or we'll be asking you to leave. Ma'am, no, this is not the time for order. We're going to pause for a recess and allow the sheriff's office to handle this. Thank you.
Commissioners, and thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I'm back up with the approval criteria. One of the things that we all know from Sterling Ranch is that if there was a need and funding for a school tomorrow, Sterling Ranch would dedicate land tomorrow to meet that need. What we're trying to do is not to dedicate land too early or to dedicate land that is never going to be built into a school. On behalf of the Sterling Ranch team, I'd ask that you vote after public comment, but I'd ask that you support the 13th Amendment. As the BOCC, you are the land use authority, and we're asking you to support the change of circumstance we have in our community. And we're just bringing this request that we will provide 110 acres. We've agreed to that. That is what the need is in Sterling Ranch, and that will be reserved for public schools. This amendment is essential because it ensures the charter schools are treated equitably and when it comes to access of land and facilities. Charter schools are public schools, and they should have equal access to funding opportunities, land opportunities, and the ability to serve families within new and growing communities. Once again, I will state that we meet all the approval criteria from 1520-01 to 1520-07, and we'll go ahead and take questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Beckman, and thank you to the applicant. I'm going to open it up for any questions from the Board of County Commissioners. Any questions?
I have no questions at this time.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question. There was a slide that showed X's where school sites were and arrows. Could you go over that and just to be absolutely clear for me, are school sites being removed or replaced? Or is number of school sites staying the same? Let's see if we can find it. So the total number of schools will remain. Yeah, that's the slide. I wanted to see that.
So in the general, there were proposed areas for school sites. There were actually more school sites proposed back in 2011, but the need for that, the demographics don't show that we need that. So during preliminary plan, for the first preliminary plan in Providence, the school site was going to be in this area. The school site is where the 12 acres is now, off of Titan, where School 51 is being built. So we're just taking that out, and we're going to add an actual school site. There were a couple of proposed school sites down here south or north of Waterton Road. The school site ended up being south of Waterton Road. That is where John Adams is, so we're just cleaning up that map. This school site is not going to be a school site. We have agreed to the 12 acres in preliminary plan 7 that is here, so that will be a school site. There was a school site up north for a junior high and a high school. It was wrapped up in the special character zones where the sports center was going to be. And we've moved it up there as a placeholder during preliminary plan. There'll probably be a lot of discussions. The full design of our town center has not been created yet. So, and that, is many years in the future. That school site right now is a potential school site. And I will add that the original calculation showed 220 acres of land, Commissioner Van Winkle. That is excessive land for what the student population is going to be in Sterling Ranch, and everyone has agreed to that. 3 elementary schools and a junior high and a high school is what we've all agreed to for many, many years, Douglas County School District and Sterling Ranch. And the PD 13th Amendment reflects that.
Okay, so in short, it replaces potential school sites and replaces them with actual school sites, but the number of school sites, the number of high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, that remains the same.
Yes. And we have a John Adams High School and a junior high. So we actually, these were labeled elementary junior high, high school, elementary. And so when we started doing the map, instead of writing with John Adams school site, elementary, junior high, high school, we just called it a school site. Instead of doing school 51 elementary, we just called it a school site. So, I mean, we could label them if the board would like, we could label them, but that was the intent. So we do have, we're going to have 2 junior highs and 2 high schools, 3 elementary schools.
Okay. In the previous, okay. Well, that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, anything else, commissioners? I do have a couple of questions, Ms. Beckman. So, you know, obviously in this hearing room, the focus is going to not be on misinformation, disinformation, rage bait on social media, just confined to the facts and the approval criteria in 152001 at SEC. So I am very interested in this letter that you provided to us. So it looks like it is a term sheet. The letterhead is from Douglas County School District, and it's from Aaron Kane, dated March 10th, 2023, almost 2.5 years ago. So I'm concerned with this correspondence. Perhaps somebody from Sterling Ranch, Mr. Smethels and Ms. Beckman want to answer this question. How long have you been in conversation with the school district about the location of a school in this community?
I'm going to bring up Brock Smethels for
Okay.
this question.
Thank you, Commissioner. As the developer, we've been in constant communication with Douglas County School District since the inception of Sterling Ranch, going back all the way to 2009 when the original zoning was submitted. We have continuously been discussing the need for a change to the way the existing zoning works, such that we do not have fallowed school sites. And that term sheet that that was presented is just an example of one of those conversations. We actually had an agreement that was provided to Ms. Millay from Corey Weiss back in the day under a different superintendent, under a different school board, trying to achieve the same thing. So we've been having ongoing conversations with the school district really since 2009, but almost annually at a minimum when it comes to the dedication of school sites.
Okay. So obviously the relationship with the Board of Education is longstanding in the county, and we hold this land in trust, and when a school is requested or that land is dedicated, the county has a very long history of dedicating that land for schools. Why has it taken 16 years to locate a school in this community?
Well, it hasn't taken 16 years. We actually dedicated a school site to Douglas County in 2015 with the Sterling Ranch filing 1 plat. That site was improved, meaning we put infrastructure in to serve it by 2017, and then the school district did not achieve a bond election until 2025. And so that site sat vacant, for 8 years roughly, give or take. Ultimately, during different administrations of the school board, different things were envisioned for that school site. All the way to Dr. Tucker at one point was open to letting us fee in lieu that site in lieu of having it be for a school site. The actual referral letter from the school district back in 2014 when that preliminary plan was, or sketch plan I should say, was approved by the county, that school site was actually envisioned to be a charter school site. And that was in the referral letter. So as you can see, as administrations and superintendents have changed, methodologies for schools continue to change as well. And as a business, that constant evolution is a challenge to operate for us to do our planning. And so a lot of what we're seeking for in this PD amendment is to provide some more certainty around land use, which is ultimately your purview, than having these evolutions come from the school board.
Yeah, thank you for that. So I'm headed into my 8th year as a commissioner, and I remember Dr. Tucker, and I remember Corey Wise, and obviously we know Aaron Kane. I mean, it's certainly been a long list of leaders at a school district, and certainly familiar with some of those conversations, although not directly involved. So when I'm looking at this correspondence, and maybe this is a question for Ms. Beckman, let's have you pop back up. So I heard you say something pretty significant. Is it your testimony that you were approached by Superintendent Kane about the bond election?
No, what she was mentioning is that our business, Sterling Ranch Development Company, was one of the larger contributors to both the MLO election and then the bond election that secured the funding, helps convince the electorate to secure funding for the school that's being built in District School 51. So I think what her intent was to say is that we support charter schools, Exhibit A, dedicating land to John Adams Academy, but we also support district schools, and that is on record given our financial support to the bond election so that we could have a school in Sterling Ranch.
Okay, I just want to be clear. Was there a promise that was made that if the bond election was funded, that there would be a school located in the site, or that these conversations would come to a particular head?
No, there were conversations about Sterling Ranch wanting schools. Actually, Director Geiger, who's not here, I was at the celebration of the MLO passing, and Director Geiger mentioned the need for a school. I think everyone acknowledges the needs for schools in Sterling Ranch. What our concern is, and how this PD amendment is scheduled to function, is that the school district gets the first opportunity to build a district school and to secure financing within a period of time. And if they don't secure financing within a period of time, then it can go to a charter school who's financed in a different methodology, doesn't require a bond election that's county-wide. And then if that doesn't occur, let's say we have a board that doesn't want charter schools, then we can pay for the land in a fee in lieu such that we don't have fallowed sites. The definition of failure to me, and hopefully Jackie and the school district will agree, is that we dedicate land to the school district or to the county in trust for a school site, and we end up buying it back within the build out of the master plan. I think that's our definition of failure. It has recently occurred in the past year, and so that is why we are before you today, is to try and clean this up so that does not occur.
Okay. And my last question, because I want to get to public testimony. We have a lot of people here, and I know you're spending a lot of time with us this afternoon. How long has the district had the opportunity to put a district school in Sterling Ranch?
Like I said, that school site was dedicated in 2015. So it took over 9 years to secure the financing to build a school in Sterling Ranch. I'll address this later, but since 2010, the county population has increased by 109,000 people. I believe there's been less than 2 or 3 school facilities, not even full neighborhood schools, built during that time period. So that are district schools. And so again, our concern and why we're here is to provide a mechanism by which we can provide the school district the first opportunity to build a school with a set time period, and then if that is unsuccessful, to ultimately have a charter school have an opportunity, and if that is unsuccessful, then to not have vacant land that for the commissioners that is not generating property taxes, actually for the school district that's not generating property taxes, for land that sits fallow, that's held in trust by the county. All the land that you currently hold or other municipalities hold in trust for the school district does not generate any value for the county or the municipality that it serves with property taxes or any assessed valuation.
No, there's no doubt about that. Mr. Smethels, thank you for that. Any additional questions for the applicant? Okay, and thank you, Ms. Beckman, as well. With that, I'm going to open it up for citizen comment. Again, thank you to every citizen, no matter where you're at on this issue. I know that it's afternoon into evening meeting, and we appreciate your comments and your time. I do have the sign-up list. What we're going to do to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to speak is each speaker will have 2 minutes. If you are an HOA or a metro district, we will provide 4 minutes. And the first person that I have on the list is Alyssa Little. Is Alyssa Little here? And I'm going to go ahead and call the first 8 names if you want to just line up. That way we can go back to back. We have Carrie Schlachter, Laura Lee Wright, Robin DePan, Reverend Lauren Grubaugh Thomas, Jessica Hearn, Rob Lower, and then a Jason Kesse. Yes, ma'am. And if you want to just state your name for the record.
Sure. Alyssa Little, Little, and I live in Sterling Ranch. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm asking you to deny the 13th Amendment because it does not meet the county's approval criteria, it violates state statute, and it breaks commitments that families like mine relied upon. Despite what the presentation today suggested, this amendment, as it's currently written, makes it highly unlikely that Sterling Ranch will ever receive another neighborhood school. This has been explained in lengthy correspondence from the district and their attorney. When my family bought our home, I was pregnant with our son, who I assume is too young to be counted in the data presented for the amount of current students in the neighborhood. When we purchased our home, we relied on the promise that Sterling Ranch would have neighborhood schools for him to grow up with. This amendment walks away from that promise. Neighborhood schools are the backbone of a community. As a Ponderosa High School graduate, I still remember how the whole town of Parker felt connected when we won state in football my sophomore year. That sense of belonging is what brings the community together, and that's what I want for my son and for Sterling Ranch. Under Section 1520.01, amendments must remain consistent with the original intent of the plan development. Sterling Ranch promised neighborhood schools. This amendment makes that future unlikely. Under 1520.03, amendments cannot harm the public interest, but this proposal will overcrowd surrounding schools, create traffic strain, and jeopardize the ability to build the neighborhood, middle, and high schools our projected population will require. It also affects property values. Strong, reliable neighborhood schools are one of the biggest drivers of home value, and uncertainty hurts every homeowner. We also need to be clear, the few emails in the record in support of this are debating an issue no one is arguing. No one here is opposing charter schools or school choice. The issue is that this amendment rewrites the rules for public land dedication by allowing privately owned parcels to count as land that is supposed to be deeded to the county for long-term public use. That shift undermines the intent of the PD and conflicts with state statute. More than 150 neighbors have submitted emails in opposition, and the school district does not support this amendment. That makes it clear that this amendment is not in the public interest. Thank you and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you so much, and a happy Thanksgiving to you too. We have Carrie Schlachter.
Yeah, my name is Carrie Schlachter, Keri, last name Schlachter.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. I was just really struck by that quote up there, government of the people, by the people, for the people. I'm a resident of Sterling Ranch. I have 2 children. One is in grade school and one attends a church school in Highlands Ranch. I'm asking you to deny this amendment. It is not consistent with criteria 1520.01, the commitments that were made to me when I reviewed the PD prior to moving in. That commitment included several district elementary schools, a district middle school, and a district high school. This is not about being for or against John Adams Academy or charters. Charters have a role in our community, but district schools provide needs charters cannot. The applicant claims that John Adams Academy will meet our neighborhood's needs through high school, and that's a gross misrepresentation. In a public meeting on March 10th, a John Adams Academy founder described expected attrition after 8th or 9th grade as, quote, at least 25%, usually even more, because kids want that traditional high school experience. And for sports, John Adams Academy will not have sports like a football team, etc. She also shared that her own children left a classical charter school for a district high school and admitted special education services would be limited, relying on referrals to district schools if they could not meet those kids' needs. And I want to be clear, something that I don't feel like has been represented here. John Adams Academy Foundation is a private entity. Whether or not it operates a public school does not change that fact. They are asking for public land to be dedicated to a private organization directly from the developer, not by the county commissioners. It's an asset that they have quoted will remain on the foundation's balance sheet if the school were to fail. They could, quote, sell the land or retain it as an asset. We will lose a school if that happens. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate that. Next, we have Laura Lee Wright.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Lori Wright. I'm a Sterling Ranch resident and a mom of 2 DCSD kids. At the outset, I want to address a point that's been raised, the idea that the approval of John Adams Academy somehow creates a change in circumstance that makes this amendment necessary. Respectfully, a developer cannot create its own need for a major PD amendment by voluntarily giving away one of the school sites it originally committed to provide. When a developer chooses to privately convey land to a preferred operator, that does not erase or reduce their obligation to dedicate public land under the PD. Self-created shortages cannot be used to justify weakening public use dedication requirements. County criteria require consistency with the original plan development, and for me, that's personal. When my family selected our lot, I pulled up the PD, studied the map, and intentionally chose a home near the designated DCSD-run school sites, with the clear understanding based on how Douglas County developments work that these would be publicly owned, DCSD-run neighborhood schools. The 13th Amendment replaces that expectation with conditional, delayed, and in some cases, private alternatives. That's not consistent with the PD's original commitments. There's also been a recent narrative that DCSD banks land for decades, implying this amendment is needed to fix that. But that misunderstands Colorado law and how school planning works. Dedication and construction are not the same thing. Dedication is a land use requirement tied to development impact. Construction depends on enrollment and voter-approved bonds. Holding land until a community grows into it is normal, prudent public planning, not evidence of a failure. In fact, DCSD's council made this clear in their letter yesterday. If this funding mandate had been in place earlier, the elementary school now under construction in Sterling Ranch would not be under construction at all. This amendment wouldn't just complicate future schools, it would prevent them. State law also requires school land dedication to be public, impact-based, and made at subdivision approval, not years later. It also allows privately conveyed charter school land to count as public dedication. County Criterion 15-2004 prohibits amendments that confer a special benefit on private entities. Counting private land as if it were public, especially after residents were repeatedly told during the CSI approval process that these transfers were purely private, raises exactly that
And ma'am,
concern.
your time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We have Robin DePan. Welcome. Hi.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Robin DePan, D-E-P-A-N, and I live in Sterling Ranch. As a Sterling Ranch resident and parent, I'm here because the 13th Amendment threatens a core promise of this community, neighborhood public schools. The promise shaped our decision to invest here and raise our family here. This amendment rewrites land dedication for schools, reduces land for DCSD schools, and undermines what families relied on when buying homes. The public response has been overwhelming. 176 residents have spoken or written in opposition of this amendment, only 23 in support, just 2 from Sterling Ranch. That imbalance matters because the public interest criterion requires you to consider the affected community if they believe this amendment serves them. Clearly it does not. DCSD has warned the funding mandate would make it nearly impossible to build additional schools here. If they can't secure funding years in advance, they risk losing land, blocking future schools, and eliminating a clear feeder path for our families. I also want to raise a fundamental question. How can a private conveyance of land between 2 private entities be counted as public dedication? This confers a special benefit, undermines the purpose of public land dedication requirements, and sets a concerning precedent. State law requires school land be dedicated for public use during subdivision approval, not privately controlled with uncertain contingencies. This amendment violates both state law and county code. For these reasons, I urge you to reject or revise this amendment to protect Douglas County families and the integrity of Sterling Ranch. I also encourage collaboration between Sterling Ranch Development and DCSD to find a solution that serves family and preserves the original vision of this community. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your testimony. We have Reverend Lauren Grubaugh-Thomas. Welcome.
Thank you. Reverend Lauren Grubaugh-Thomas, G-R-U-B-A-U-G-H, Thomas, T-H-O-M-A-S. I am a resident of Sterling Ranch, the mother of 3-year-old twins, and the pastor of Holy Companion, a church which meets in the neighborhood. Today I want to speak about trust between residents, the Sterling Ranch Development Company, our school district, and our county. The 13th Amendment represents a significant shift from what many residents, myself included, understood about how schools would be planned for and supported. The speed of the process has understandably raised questions and concerns in our community. Business often moves quickly, but when a business is building community, pacing matters. Community is built at the speed of trust, and right now, trust has been strained. I'd like to invite us to pause, to take a breath. and to consider 3 issues of timing. First, Sterling Ranch is far from full build-out. Rather than prematurely deciding that public land will not be needed, Community Trust would benefit from reviewing demographic forecasts together to ensure they fully account for the build-out timeline. Second, holding this vote during a major holiday week and at hours inaccessible to many working families, which constitutes much of Sterling Ranch, effectively limits public participation. A more accessible timeline would strengthen community engagement and trust. And third, slowing down would allow time to ensure compliance with both the letter and the spirit of state and federal law, protecting the county, the developer, and the community from the disruptive effect of future challenges. With these considerations in mind, I want to suggest that a planned, transparent reevaluation in 7 years' time would give the community time to grow and allow decisions to be made with full information. I believe deeply that there is a creative path forward that allows Sterling Ranch to flourish socially, economically, and educationally. My hope is that any amendment or process we adopt moves us toward that good future and not away from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. We have Jessica Hearn. Welcome.
Hello, yes, Jessica Hearn, Hearn. I live in the Solstice Development. I'm here today to voice my concerns about Amendment 13 and the impact it could have on schools in Sterling Ranch and Douglas County at large. I have 3 elementary-aged children. 2 of them are on IEPs, and all 3 are flourishing under the support of the public school teams and DCSD. I want them to continue their growth and education in Douglas County Public Schools with licensed teachers and in environments where all students are welcomed and supported. There are many families like mine that believe in the public school system and want nearby K-12 public schools for their children to attend. Public schools anchor a community, and I worry about the precedent that Amendment 13 sets for the Solstice land currently set aside for a school, as well as other locations across Douglas County. Even our current school board directors have voiced concern that the way Amendment 13 is written, it could require that school funding be secured before land could be granted, making it impossible for DCSD to ever put school funding for additional Sterling Ranch public schools onto the ballot for the community to vote on. This amendment effectively guarantees that after School 51, no more public DCSD schools will be built in our neighborhood, making it a school desert. This will certainly shrink our pool of interested future buyers and harm our property values. Public schools anchor a community, and we moved here with young children so that our kids could grow alongside this community. I want to be able to ride bikes to school carnivals and cheer with my neighbors at the high school football game. These schools were part of the vision we were sold for the Solstice and Sterling Ranch communities, and making this change damages our community potential and community trust. I would ask you to please reject Amendment 13. Thank you for your commitment to protecting our public lands. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Hearn. We have Rob Lohr. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Rob Lohr, and I am a homeowner in Sterling Ranch since June of 2023, and I'm here to express my strong support for the Sterling Ranch change to the 13th Amendment, our land use amendment currently under consideration. First and foremost, I will urge you to vote yes on this amendment. This is a practical, reasonable update that brings needed clarity and fairness to how we treat all public schools in our county. Right now, there is confusion in the community about the status of different types of schools. This amendment helps resolve that by clearly affirming that both Douglas County schools and charter schools outside the school district are public school entities. Families depend on both. Our policies should recognize that they serve the same fundamental public purpose, educating our children. This amendment also ensures that all types of public schools are placed on equal footing in our land use processes. That alignment creates predictability, not just for schools, but for planners, for developers, and for the families who will learn and live in Sterling Ranch. Most importantly, this amendment helps protect student and parent access to education everywhere and promotes educational opportunity. As communities like Sterling Ranch continue to grow, we must ensure that schools can be built where students live. Supporting this amendment means promoting education opportunities, removing unnecessary barriers, and ensuring families have equitable access to public education options. I respectfully ask you to approve the Sterling Ranch changes to the land use amendment and vote yes. Thank you for your time and your thoughtful leadership on this important issue.
Thank you, Mr. Lohr. We now have Jason Kassay. Mr. Kassay.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Kassay, K-A-S-S-A-Y. I live in Sterling Ranch. Sterling Ranch has steadily shifted away from promised obligations by requesting repeated exceptions. The 13th Amendment is the latest iteration of a long-running behavior. Initial enthusiasm when commitments cost nothing, followed by repeated attempts to renegotiate those commitments once they become real using threadbare justifications. The cumulative effect of amendments to date has been to increase flexibility for the developer while reducing certainty for residents. Amendments have consistently reduced the developer's burden at the county's expense. Most recently, the gifting of 26 acres to support the privately operated JAA charter was presented as a neighborhood school. Yet JAA serves only a tiny fraction of the community due to its lottery-based enrollment and the limited IEP and 5.0 support. And as a CSI charter, it operates outside of DCSD's governance. If approved, the 13th Amendment counts this land towards DCSD's required school inventory and imposes funding obligations the district cannot realistically meet, and making future schools impossible. This is not about whether one prefers charters or district schools. It's about honoring legal commitments and ensuring that county residents are not left holding the burdens for promises that were supposed to be delivered by the developer. The concern is not any single amendment, but the overall trajectory. Each change may be presented as small, technical, or necessary for flexibility, but the cumulative trend is unmistakable. Sterling Ranch's obligations decrease while the counties expand. That is why the 13th Amendment needs to be evaluated in the context of the full history. The school land framework in the original PD was not ornamental. It was an integral part of Sterling Ranch's entitlement, balancing thousands of homes with required public services. DCSD's planning has been built upon those commitments, and families bought homes believing these promises would be kept. The county must also consider the precedents it sets. If a master plan community can repeatedly revise its obligations whenever timing becomes inconvenient, then commitments and PDs are nothing more than placeholders. Commitment to a community is measured not by marketing materials or promises made during entitlement, but by what the developer delivers when it matters. The 13th Amendment would jeopardize the educational future of every student in this community, leaving critical school needs unmet for generations. The county must reaffirm that the commitments made in the PD are commitments kept. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Kassay. We have Jacqueline Charles, and before she speaks, I'm going to ask the next 10 to come up. We have Mark Hampton, Chelsea Davis, Linda White, Kim Gilmartin, Cindy Jensen, Harold, looks like Button. We have Kaylin Bachenfeld, Kyle Whitehair, Jennifer Williams, Emily Suyad, and Amity Wicks. Ms. Charles.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jacqueline Charles, and I'm a Sterling Ranch resident and the parent of a kindergartner in the Douglas County School District. When my daughter started school, we considered a charter option, but after enrolling her at Roxborough Primary, I saw how essential a district-run public neighborhood school is for our family. The mental health and learning support team have been extraordinary as we have navigated ADHD and sensory challenges. They check in, communicate proactively, and provide resources required by law in a public school setting. The support has been life-changing for my daughter. This is exactly why the land given to John Adams Academy should not count towards the public school land requirement. While charter schools offer special education, they are not legally required to provide the same level of services. They do not have to accept every neighborhood child and can limit enrollment. Families, especially those with learning behavior or sensory needs, may not be admitted or may not receive adequate support. This would leave many Sterling Ranch children needing to be driven or bused out of the neighborhood to a district school that can guarantee the services they need. My family relied on the promise that Sterling Ranch would include designated land, inclusive district-run public schools. Changing that promise jeopardizes access to the supports my daughter depends on and that many families will depend on as our community grows. Many residents also feel the odds are stacked against us and that the development interests often outweigh the needs of the families in the community. I hope this commission will show that our voices matter and that the commitments made to us still mean something. I'm asking you to deny or delay the 13th Amendment until the Douglas County School District and the community are fully consulted. Please uphold the commitment that families like mine. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Mr. Hampton.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Mark Hampton, a resident of Douglas County. I'm here as a private citizen and not as a representative of any appointed position within Douglas County. I'm speaking today in support of Amendment 13, the Sterling Ranch Plan Development. I want to briefly outline why I believe the amendment is not only reasonable, but fully consistent with the principles of the United States Constitution, with Colorado law, and the Douglas County Comprehensive Master Plan. First, the foundation of our country is a constitutional protection of property rights. When a landowner voluntarily enters into a legal binding development plan, meeting all conditions, complies with state statutes, and fulfills all requirements set by the county, the landowner maintains the right to exercise the uses that the zoning and the planning development allow. Sterling Ranch has adhered to every one of these standards. This amendment is not a request to expand rights, it's simply a refinement of school site dedication formulas that remain fully within the scope of the existing approval plan development. Protecting property rights means honoring agreements when the applicant has done everything required of them. In this case, in my opinion, they have. Second, much of the public debate has revolved around charter schools count as public schools. Under Colorado law, the answer is simply clear, yes. Specifically under Colorado Revised Statute 22-30-.5-104. It states, charter schools are explicitly defined as public schools. Therefore, they fully qualify within 110 acres of Sterling Ranch agreed to dedicate for public education. Finally, after reviewing all public available materials, I believe the applicant has met all the criteria required by Douglas County Comprehensive Master Plan. The amendment proposed approves clarity, simplifies its future dedications, and strengthens rather than weakens long-term school planning for Sterling Ranch. I would hope the Board of Commissioners would vote in approval for Amendment 13.
Thank you, Mr. Hampton. We have Chelsea Davis. Welcome.
Hello. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Chelsea Davis. I'm a mom living in Sterling Ranch. I'm here today to voice my strong opposition to this amendment. To me, public neighborhood schools are crucial to building a vibrant, connected community. The heart of this amendment shifts what should be a firm public commitment to our children's education into a conditional, developer-controlled process. Instead of guaranteeing enough land for public schools in Sterling Ranch, the amendment allows privately owned school sites or even cash payments to count towards the 110-acre dedication requirement. The developers state that they want to offer land to the school district, but if DCSD doesn't have funds available at that moment, the land can immediately go to private or charter operators, or even be developed for other non-school uses. Let that sink in. Our dedicated school land could be turned into a supermarket, or whomever has the most cash in hand. As a parent, I worry deeply about what this means for my child and for our entire community. Without public neighborhood middle and high schools in Sterling Ranch, our neighborhood kids would be split up, forced to attend schools in Roxborough, Highlands Ranch, or otherwise attend charter or private schools, which accept students from all over the county, not just Sterling Ranch residents. They also don't provide busing. Our sense of community would suffer, our property values would be negatively impacted for years to come. Public opposition is overwhelming. 176 letters opposed, only 20 in support, but just 2 of those supporters live in Sterling Ranch, one being the charter's founder. This clearly shows the community does not support this land use change. Families moved to Sterling Ranch with the promise of strong, connected neighborhood schools. We need to keep that promise. Please reject the 13th Amendment and keep school land dedication a transparent, long-term, public process. Our kids in our neighborhoods deserve nothing less. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you for your time, Ms. Davis. Linda White, welcome.
Linda White. I live in Douglas County, WHITE. 250 years ago, America's founders set aside land for freedom. Today, you are deciding whether Douglas County will set aside land for choice. And choice and freedom go together like cookies and milk. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm here on behalf of Grandparents for Kids and families across Douglas County who care deeply about education and legacy. Today's vote on the Sterling Ranch set-aside amendment is just not about one development. It's about whether all public schools, neighborhood and charter alike, will have equal access to land that was designated for education. This is a matter of fairness and of honoring parental choice. Charter schools serve many Douglas County families who simply want equal access to the same opportunities as their neighbors in district neighborhood schools. As Thomas Jefferson reminded us, an educated citizenry is a vital requisite for our survival as free people. That truth applies here because land for schools matters. It ensures that every child has access to the kind of education that sustains freedom and opportunity. Allowing this amendment ensures that future generations in Douglas County will have access to schools and that reflect both academic excellence and parental involvement. I know that some will argue this land should be reserved only for one type of school, but families deserve equal access, and limiting these sites denies parents the ability to choose the best fit for their children. I stand here just as a grandma, but I know this amendment is about families, freedom, and the future of all Douglas County families. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White. We have Kim Gilmartin. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm the Vice Chair of the Governing Board of John Adams Academy, and I'm going to speak on behalf of the organization of John Adams Academy, so I'd like to request the 4 minutes, like Ellie did at the Planning Commission meeting.
And I'm going to refer to council, just make sure that we're consistent with our rules.
You know, we typically give that to metro districts, HOAs, something along those lines of an elected entity. A private entity is not something we would typically give this to.
Yeah, and just out of fairness, we're going to limit you to 3 minutes if you can be concise.
Okay, I'll try. All right, I'm one of the founders of 5 classical charter schools here in Colorado, John Adams being one. And over the last 10 years, I've submitted charter applications in 8 different school districts. So I like to say that I've seen it all. I've experienced the battle for our right to exist. I've seen school boards vote party lines on an approval or denial, and I've heard all of the lies and misinformation. It really never changes from district to district. Today, I'd like to talk about the 2 biggest obstacles charter schools face in getting approved. That's authorization, getting approved, getting the vote, and facilities. Now, charter schools don't get to go to the public and ask for $60 million in a bond to build our elementary school, which is what I understand School 51 is going to cost. We have to pay, we have to privately finance our $20 million school. And that means that we might have up to 20% less operating revenue to work with, which equates to fewer dollars going into the classroom and to students. So having access to developer land is truly a game changer for public schools. Now, I want to give you a real-life example of how charter schools having access to land and districts being able to land bank can really hurt families and students. In 2017, I was the co-founder of an Ascent Classical Academy in Douglas County. Our charter was approved by the sitting board, and then after approval, we asked to lease and build on some land that was dedicated to the school district, but it sat empty for about 15 years. The Long Range Planning Committee wrote a recommendation to the board denying giving us access, and they said that it was because they might want to build on it someday. So what did Ascent do? We had to locate in an office building. We still don't have a gym, and we have kids playing in a parking lot. I'd also like to clear up one thing about what some of the district and the board members have written in about our school, John Adams Academy, and that's that we're not going to enroll kids from the neighborhood. That's not true. We're giving a priority to all Sterling Ranch families, and then after that to Douglas County families. So we are acting like the neighborhood school in that way, and that's in our enrollment policy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Gilmartin. Cindy Jensen.
Hi, I'm Cindy Jensen, Jensen, and I'm from Douglas County. One of my granddaughters here in Douglas County transferred to a charter school this year because there are opportunities available at charter schools that are not offered through conventional public schools. I support charter schools and school choice so parents can provide their children with the best possible education for their needs. In Douglas County, we hear constantly about the need for equality and equity. The issue Amendment 13 is addressing is equality and equal treatment. Charter schools are public schools, and families who choose them deserve the same opportunities as families who choose district-run schools. Anti-charter activists, along with current and newly elected school board members strongly oppose the amendment being considered today. They are pressuring the county to restrict these school sites to conventional public schools only. Land designated for public schools should be available to all schools that Douglas County families choose for their children. These are the same anti-charter individuals that have shown up at multiple hearings and public meetings since John Adams Academy began the process of getting approval to try to stop them. Unfortunately, they continue to use false information, much of which has been provided by one of our continuing school board members on his social media page, and scare tactics, like at last week's school board meeting where they pressured the board to vote against the charter contract extension. Imagine telling a private property owner where or whether they can and can't have a school built on their own property. That goes against the basis of our beliefs in small government, private property rights and freedoms. Please support John Adams Academy, the future of charter schools in our county, and vote yes on Amendment 13. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen. Harold Burton.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Harold Britton, B-R-I-T-T-O-N. I'm an educator, a pastor, a published author, and active in community volunteer work. Living here in Castle Rock with my family and my wife, we strongly support John Adams Academy as a charter school and ask Commissioners to vote yes for this Land Use Amendment 13. Parents like us increasingly prefer to choose charter schools. They are committed to an educational system that empowers students, supports families, restores better parental rights, and promotes American values. Charter schools are innovative, and test scores consistently prove to be higher than other educational options. Charter schools are public schools. We need more charter schools to prepare students for successful producing lives, securing the best jobs available going into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With that, we're going to move to Kaylin Bockenfeld. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Kaylin Bockenfeld, B-O-C-K-E-N-F-E-L-D, and I'm here today speaking as a Parker parent of 2 young children. But in the interest of full transparency and acknowledging the circulation of a certain newsletter, I will confirm that I am employed by the Douglas County Economic Development Corporation. However, I want to be perfectly clear. My testimony today is offered solely in my capacity as a private citizen and a parent. I am here to speak in favor of school choice and the proposed amendment. JAA is a public charter school. By law and by definition, it is open to all children, just as School 51, a public DCSD school, is open to all children. I recognize that not everyone may agree with the educational model or values of JAA. To those who hold this view, my answer is simple and direct. You have the right not to send your children there. This public charter school will serve students from across our entire county, offering a valuable alternative within our educational ecosystem, much like any other public school. School choice is paramount. It is not the decision of an entity or individual where my children or any children receive their education. That decision belongs only to the parents. I urge you to support the amendment and uphold the principle of public school choice within Douglas County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. We appreciate it. Kyle Whitehair.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Kyle Whitehair, resident Sterling Ranch. Easiest way, color white, hair on your head. I have both, so that should be pretty easy. I'm speaking today in opposition to the 13th Amendment. First, Colorado law is clear. Under the CS for subdivision regulation, school site dedications must go to the school district, and DCSD alone determines whether those sites are adequate. A public charter parcel simply cannot substitute for district-dedicated land. That is a statutory requirement. For instance, if JAA were under DCSB authority, I would agree. But instead, it falls under CSI. A nonprofit entity's parcel does not fulfill that requirement. Sterling Ranch PD requires 110 acres dedicated to DCSD, and the district has publicly stated it still needs approximately 98 acres to serve full build-out, including 3 elementary schools and a combined middle high school site. The 26-acre JAA donated parcel cannot count because DCCA doesn't own it, control it, nor rely on it for capacity planning. Second, DCSD's legal teams have formally objected. Their letters cite statutory conflicts, financial conflicts, and procedural defects. The amendment also requires DCSD to meet conditions like a voter-approved bond at final plat that cannot legally be met, effectively eliminating the dedication requirement. Third, the Planning Commission deadlocked 4-4, a rare outcome that reflects serious concern. No independent legal planning or educational body supports this amendment. As for plots of land sitting for school use, that is common among many counties and many states. Fourth, approving it exposes the county to Rule 106 litigation, where courts routinely overturn land use decisions that conflict with statute. Douglas County, not the developer, would bear the legal costs, and this risk can be easily avoided. Finally, the amendment delivers no guaranteed benefit to residents. It reduces district-owned school land and shifts long-term risk to taxpayers. For these reasons, I respectfully urge you to deny or revise the 13th Amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehair. Jennifer Williams.
Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Williams, W-I-L-L-I-A-M-S. When my husband and I chose to purchase a home in Sterling Ranch in January 2020, we did so primarily because of the opportunity to live in a new neighborhood with lots of children that our then 4-month-old could grow up with. We were assured that as it grew, the neighborhood would add multiple DCSD neighborhood schools for these children to attend. Now, as Elementary School 51 is slated to finally be built, the developers of Sterling Ranch and their cronies have decided that we residents who support traditional neighborhood schools should not have that school choice that they're so fond of trotting out when it benefits them. We know from DCSD's own communications, to you, that if you allow this amendment to proceed, we will not get any more DCSD neighborhood schools in Sterling Ranch. We're 25% built out, and we're being told that that will be our only option unless we want our children to attend privately held, privately managed charter schools. How is that school choice? I did not move to Sterling Ranch so that my child's academic options could be limited by the Smethels, Ellie Reynolds, and Kim Gill-Martin, or even you, the county commissioners. If this amendment is allowed to proceed as written, Sterling Ranch is not the only neighborhood that will be affected. Other new neighborhoods will be in a position to have developers and their preferred special interest groups dictate what types of schools are allowed in their community. That is not school choice, and it is not fair to our children or us as parents. Finally, I would point out that the recent home rule vote and school board elections have demonstrated that many of us are unhappy with representatives who unilaterally decide to force their pet projects through without sufficient community input. I urge you to take our concerns seriously and to do what's best for our children by denying the amendment as written. Thank you for your consideration and for protecting public trust in our county government.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Emily Suyat.
Hi, Commissioners. Thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Emily Suyat. Being able to comment and listen to each other in a public forum is really important, and it's how we arrive at good solutions. I'm here today to urge you to oppose Amendment 13. I hear people talking about, and the developer talking about what's best for the developer, but I think the focus should be on what's best for the Sterling Ranch community and Douglas County as a whole. The contributions that Sterling Ranch developers have made towards schools, they are admirable contributions, but it's part of being a developer in Colorado. It's part of doing business here. We should not have special rules for Sterling Ranch developers that allow them to count private land to the DCSD allotment. Our community as a whole includes Douglas County School District. It's not a business, but the bedrock of our community. And one thing that I've heard everyone agree on here is that public education is important. This amendment will effectively prevent the future existence of neighborhood schools, including a middle school and a high school. Public charter schools such as John Adams may be popular, and I hope it succeeds, but the fact remains that public charter schools cannot guarantee enrollment for all kids who apply, and you will not hear any charter schools promise that today. If Amendment 13 is approved, it will also almost certainly result in a lawsuit where DCSD sues the county and taxpayers will pay the price on both sides. I'm sorry that Sterling Ranch developers take offense at the fact of being sued, but this is how the district protects its interests on behalf of taxpayers. Even if it's handled in-house, a lawsuit will pull attorneys away from the regular business of the county. We are a community. We're tired of being divided. Please do what's best for the community and the county and not a developer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Suyet. Amity Wicks. And as Amity is coming up, I'm going to ask for Linnea Dotsayan, Samaya Wheeler-Klaus, Katie Burton, Allison Comer, and Senator Mark Baisley. Welcome.
Again, my name is Amity Wicks. I live in Highlands Ranch. Many in our community shout a steady mantra of choice until it's about school choice. They chant diversity and inclusion until it's diversity of worldview and pedagogy. Charter schools are public schools. This amendment allows all schools equal footing to be able to provide a wide variety of options for education for the wide variety of people we have in our community. Charters should not be treated as second class because they provide an alternative option to children and families. If we truly believe in choice and diversity, and if we want to maintain this county as one providing premier education opportunities, this amendment should be passed. As was pointed out earlier by Mr. Jonk, the Douglas County School District had already shown multiple times how it has been sadly yanking the promised football away from Charlie Brown. It has promised school sites for neighborhoods, then sold them off for profit. Most recently, a school was promised at Crystal Valley. If only we would pass a tax increase. Well, once they got their money through to increase debt, that promise was broken. Now the school district is threatening legal action if they don't get this land to build a school. How can they possibly be trusted to do so after breaking promise after promise to do so in other areas of need? John Adams has the stated interest from the community, the funds, and the personnel infrastructure needed to provide a school imminently. This amendment would ensure an option for local school in the next year. We should not withhold educational opportunities for the community when the reality is imminent.
Thank you, Ms. Wicks. Linnea Dotsen, you're going to have to tell me how to pronounce your last name. I apologize.
It's Linnea Dotseth, L-E-N-A-Y-A.
Got it.
Yeah, Dotseth, D-O-T-S-E-T-H. Good afternoon. My name is Linnea Dotseth. I'm a Sterling Ranch resident, a parent of 4 small children, and a community member who worked tirelessly to help pass the DCSD bond. I supported that effort because our community was promised that schools would be built in a timely, responsible way. When my family began building our home in Sterling Ranch in 2019, we had 1 child and a baby on the way. The developer's own website at the time clearly stated that Sterling Ranch had multiple school sites planned for the community and that DCSD would determine when and where those schools would be built. Families like mine relied on those promises. We moved here believing a long-term educational ecosystem was part of the plan. The 13th Amendment breaks that promise. DCSD's official letter to the county confirms just how harmful this amendment would be. The district states that if this new funding mandate had been in place, the new elementary school planned for Sterling Ranch could not move forward. That school is scheduled to break ground at the start of the new year, and my kids are so excited to attend in 2027. And under this amendment, it wouldn't have happened at all. DCSD also warns that this amendment could preclude the district from building any future neighborhood schools in Sterling Ranch, not delay, completely prevent them. It forces the district to secure funding for construction years before it's justified or even possible, or else losing a school site permanently. This is a dramatic departure from the decades of Douglas County practice. This is not a political debate or community speculation. It's communication from the school district itself. This amendment would have stopped the new elementary school and prevent any future DCSD neighborhood schools in Sterling Ranch. It's inconsistent with Colorado statutes. It violates county code and that's designed to protect the public. If passed, any attempt by the district to challenge these changes in court would waste taxpayer dollars, money that could be supporting students, not cleaning up broken promises. Our kids need schools that keep up with growth. This amendment moves the goalposts. It removes choice for those who want neighborhood schools and rewrites rules for families who have already bought homes. Sterling Ranch should be held accountable for the commitments they made to the families when we chose to build our lives here. We did our part. Now we need the county to do yours. Protect the public, uphold longstanding land use expectations, and ensure the developers keep their promise. Please vote no on the Amendment 13. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dotseth. We have Samay Wheeler-Klaus. Welcome.
I'm Sammy Wheeler-Klaus, and I come to you as a citizen of Douglas County and a grandmother of Douglas County School District students. I ask you to vote no on the 13th Amendment to approve 26 acres as a part of the original 110 acres agreed upon and committed for district schools in Sterling Ranch. The bottom line is that with the projected build-out in this area, we will need the agreed-upon land for future neighborhood elementary schools, a middle school, and a high school with that additional 98 acres. These families want neighborhood schools. Support your fellow county agencies. hold the developers accountable for what they committed to Douglas County School District. Charter schools are public schools. The difference here is JAA is not under the Douglas County School District governance. Yes, they are a charter school, but not under purview of Douglas County School District expectations, guidelines, and accountability. These developers made a promise and are failing in their promise. Do the right thing and take care of Douglas County students. Vote no on this 13th Amendment.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler-Klaus. We have Katie Burton. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Katie Burton, B-U-R-T-O-N. My husband and I live in Sterling Ranch with our 2 small children, 3 and 1. I'm asking you to deny this amendment for 2 critical reasons. Sterling Ranch Development Company has a history of not listening to its residents, and this may violate Colorado law. I sent emails to the developers that went unanswered. I attended a public CAB Sterling Ranch meeting where public comment was cut short, and we were told to bring our questions to you. So here are my questions. Number 1, why were the communications about this amendment to residents so vague? All Sterling Ranch residents received a small piece of white paper the size of a note card in our mailboxes, notifying us of this proposed change. The minimal information is not sufficient for a change this significant. If it's truly for the betterment of our community, we should receive open and transparent communication where all sides are allowed to voice their concerns. This is an ongoing pattern with the Sterling Ranch Development Company and something that will continue if they are not held accountable. My second question, is this lawful under Colorado Statute 3028-133? Colorado law requires that public school land dedication must be dedicated for public use, not privately owned land. This amendment violates that requirement in 2 ways. First, it makes the dedication conditional on the school district securing bond funding. Second, it allows privately owned parcels to count toward public school dedication. Take John Adams Academy, a charter school, for example. It is owned by a private nonprofit, not a public entity. If this amendment is approved as written, it will put Douglas County in conflict with the state law, exposing the county to legal challenges and setting a precedent that undermines school planning across the entire county. I'm asking you to deny this amendment until residents are heard and legal compliance is confirmed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time, Ms. Burton. I have Allison Comer. Welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Allison Comer, C-O-M-E-R. My husband and I have lived in Sterling Ranch since 2018. We were one of the first families to close on our home and are proud Sterling Ranch residents. I bring this to your attention because at the time I was pregnant with our now 7-year-old, who is currently a first grader at Roxborough Primary. We bought our home with the promise we would have access to district-run schools that provide necessary supports and services to all students. I'm here on behalf of all the families who specifically chose our neighborhood because of access to schools that would have direct oversight by the Douglas County School District, not only to educate their children, but as a place of employment as well. I'm also speaking on behalf of all the children who receive special education and other support services at school. Many of these supports and services are simply not provided at charter and private schools. If this amendment passes, all of those children will be forced out of the neighborhood where they have support systems in place. They will be forced to attend schools, long bus ride, and family commutes away. The surrounding schools, Ranchview and Thunder Ridge, were not built with the intention or the ability to accommodate all of these students. Student access to top education opportunities, board-certified educators, licensed support providers, and services will be impacted tremendously. All students deserve equal opportunity to the education that best supports their needs. All community members deserve a voice in the community they are a part of. The passing of this amendment takes away that voice. I strongly encourage you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Comer. We'd like to welcome Senator Mark Baisley, and as the senator comes up, I'd like to also invite up David A. DiCarlo, Stephen Collier, Dana Bonham, Robin Webb, and Amanda Budimlia. Senator.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good to see you all. You know, the first time that I testified regarding Sterling Ranch was in this room, probably 14 years ago by my estimation. Back then, those 2,000 acres were known to us as the Bevins Ranch, and the Bevins family had kids about the same age as my kids, so my kids were on those 2,000 acres helping round up cattle and so on. It was big fun with them. We knew since way back when that one day those 2,000 acres would be developed into something. And the proposals that came about were things like aggregations of building material and trash compaction. So we were fighting all of those. But then one day I met Diane Smethels, had coffee with her at the Village Inn in Highlands Ranch, and she described the vision for Sterling Ranch to me, and I was duly impressed. So I very quickly thereafter testified in favor of the development, the approval for the development of Sterling Ranch by the Board of County Commissioners at that time. Now, the Smethels did not flip property and run with the profits. Rather, they have been phenomenal partners. They have fulfilled everything that I heard them say. They've built a phenomenal, wonderful community, and their investment is generational, evidenced by their son, who is now taking over as president. I'm very impressed with all that. Commissioners, please vote yes on Amendment 13. It lays land use with the proper equality of the different types of schools. It's the right thing for us to do, for you guys to do. And I love that Gettysburg quote up there, because this school, Adams County, John Adams School, is truly and of by the people, and it's not being required for anyone to attend, but it's an invitation for people to have an option to attend. And on a personal note, my own granddaughter, 7-year-old, is an applicant for John Adams as of about a week ago, and I hope she gets in. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Senator. I'm going to ask you to refrain from saying Adams County in this here. No problem. Thank you, Senator. Welcome, Stephen Collier.
Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate it. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Steve Collier. I'm a resident of Highlands Ranch, just next door to Sterling. I live technically on the west side, so we do get a lot of that overflow of children who currently are enrolled in DCSD. I am asking for you to vote yes on the proposed land use amendment. The amendment is simple, but it's also incredibly important. It clarifies not only for Sterling Ranch that both neighborhood schools and charter schools are and have always been public school entities, but this also has lasting impacts countywide. Families in Douglas County for decades have relied on both. It is parents and not the government who choose the school that best fits their kids' needs. Our land use code should reflect that reality clearly and without ambiguity. The recent Planning Commission meeting also raises questions to how accurate some of their own commission members understood their vote. The highly partisan nature of that meeting from some attendees suggests that the planning commissioners and their considerations were affected by confusion over their vote, which suggests that the amendment would have been approved by recommendation if it were held again. This amendment also ensures that all public schools standing on equal footing when navigating the land use processes. No public school, whether charter or neighborhood, should be disadvantaged or exposed to litigation risk because of unclear terminology within county code, even though this will be applied to Sterling Ranch. After all, when it comes to putting our kids first, it's important to maintain fairness and consistency in our governance. Finally, a yes vote not only protects student and parental access to education everywhere in Douglas County, but reinforces the county's many decades-long commitment to giving families choice that works for them. Commissioners, this is a straightforward fix for us all. School choice and parental control have been the hallmark of why families move to our wonderful Douglas County, and I respectfully ask you to vote yes on the land use amendment. Thank you for your commitment to protecting both public and private land.
Thank you, Mr. Collier. We did have David DiCarlo, but I don't see him in the room. Is Mr. DiCarlo available for testimony? Okay. So with that, we're going to move on to Dana Bonham. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in favor of school choice. My name is Dana Bonham. We chose to homeschool our children for most of their education. For a couple of boys, however, we did utilize the Colorado Early Colleges in the college's second year of existence. It was a great experience where students could earn both high school and college credits concurrently. Since that time, CEC has grown from meeting under the Red Sky Tattoo Shop in a strip mall on Wilcox to a larger location in Parker. And it's very popular. Families need opportunities to choose the type of education model that fits their family's needs. The cookie cutter public school doesn't always meet that need, and so we turn to homeschool, private, and charter schools. In the news, we hear daily that couples are getting married later in life and having less children. And the amendment supports these statistics, and the fact that DCSD has been forced to shutter schools in Highlands Ranch also reflects this fact. It's already been highlighted about Crystal Valley Ranch, but I want to emphasize that again, that the district promoted a public school in Crystal Valley Ranch this last election to pass a bond, and then decided not to build on the 20-plus acre site that had already been dedicated to the school district. The district, under Aaron Kane's leadership, did manage a $500,000 cash in lieu payment to the district, though, for land they never owned or will never use. What if a charter school had been able to be there? Then Crystal Valley Ranch would have a school. This amendment provides 110 acres of land to public schools. It gives all public schools, including charters, the opportunity to build and meet the education needs in their community. This means no more shady backroom deals for the school district and more transparency and accountability with the bonds they propose to taxpayers. Thank you for voting in favor of the 13th Amendment. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Thank you for your testimony. Robin Webb. And ma'am, I'm sorry, we do not allow testimony by proxy, so Robin does need to testify.
To do so.
You do not. So I would ask if Robin's available, if you can have her call in or.
Oh, she had to leave to another obligation.
Okay, well, I'm sorry about that. I'll ask for Amanda Budimlia. Okay, so with that, I'm going to ask the next 5 to come up, and I appreciate everyone's patience. It's a long evening, but appreciate all the testimony. I have, looks like Kai Michelson, Bob Marshall, Kelly Mayer, Sandy Shute, and then Valerie Thompson. Starting with, looks like K. All I can do is read what's on here. It's a K-A-I and then Mickelson. Is that individual here? Okay. If not, we'll move to Representative Bob Marshall. Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Bob Marshall. I live in Highlands Ranch. I've heard a lot of stuff, so I don't want to repeat a lot of what I heard, but I did check the agenda packet today and had saw more than 24 comments from citizens against this idea and none for it. It since apparently has been updated to 176 against it, with only 23 for it, and out of those 23, apparently only 2 from Sterling Ranch, 1 being the founder of the John Adams Academy. This is a serious problem. If we actually had a commissioner who represented Sterling Ranch, it would be an emphatic no. So we should consider that. At the Planning Commission meeting, I made the strong point. Sterling Ranch did not reach out to the Douglas County School District. And if I brought a bill in the legislature and had not talked to the most important stakeholder in that entire process and tried to bring it forward to a committee or to the floor, the speaker would yank that off the calendar so quick, call me on the carpet and say, what is wrong with you? Even if the people will never agree with you, the first people you reach out to are the ones who disagree with that. Sterling Ranch made no effort, to reach out to DCSD to discuss this. The stakeholder, the one stakeholder that needs to be consulted. And their resolution was very specific. They allowed them to go to CSI, John Adams Academy.
I mean, I guess he wasn't here when we saw the presentation, when we got the thing. Oh, I'm sorry, is this hot? Sorry.
Will I be getting 5 more seconds, or? we're going to be talked over as usual. Every time I come here, I wind up getting more supporters.
You can
because of the
proceed, but
content.
sir, your argument doesn't hold a lot of water because we just received correspondence documented that there was a conversation with
I'm
the school
saying,
district.
I'm saying for something of this magnitude, they did not reach out, came straight to the planning commission, and it was only when we were pointing that out to them
Believe the
at that
representative's
meeting that
time
they
is
did
up.
that.
Yeah.
This resolution.
Sir, I believe your time is up.
And I will
So
once
I'm
again
gonna ask
likely
for
gain more
Kelly-
supporters because of the conduct of this commission.
I'm sorry you missed the discussion, sir. So we'll ask for Ms. Mayer to join us. Ms. Mayer?
Hello, my name is Kelly Mayer, M-A-Y-R. I am a 30-year resident of Highlands Ranch, and I am disappointed but not surprised by this backroom deal. This is not a school choice issue. This amendment will harm the school district and the county residents. I am the mom of many former and current Thunder Ridge High School students. This is a school that Sterling Ranch students currently attend. Sterling Ranch is only 25% built out. They will need their own high school, and this amendment could impede them from getting that. I implore you to vote no on Amendment 13. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mayer. And we have Sandy Shute.
Yes, my name is Sandy Shutt. I'm a resident of
Shutt.
Castle Rock, Douglas County. I will admit I did not know much about this whole thing before I came to this meeting. But a couple of things that I picked up here. I found it significant early in the meeting when a comment was made that parents in Sterling Ranch got together to get this charter school because they weren't getting one from Douglas County yet. And they were wanting a school. And I will also know that an increasing number of parents are choosing charter schools. I also have a lot of friends that have chosen homeschooling because the public schools haven't been meeting the needs of their family's education. I do have a granddaughter who attends an early college charter school, and she's receiving great opportunities, but she is also able to try out for the volleyball team at her district school and play on their team. So she isn't excluded from the sports experience because she's going to a charter school. The charter schools are public schools. And I ask you to support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shutt. Appreciate your testimony. Valerie Thompson. And after this, we're going to do about a 5-minute bio break and then reconvene. Ms.
Hi.
Thompson.
Good almost evening, commissioners. So my name is Valerie Thompson. I'm a director on the Douglas County Board of Education, and I'm here today as one board director to provide my position regarding the proposed 13th Amendment to the Sterling Ranch Plan development. So Amendment 13, and as we've heard quite a bit already tonight, as it's currently written, would significantly limit and potentially prevent the school district's ability to provide schools for current and future families of Sterling Ranch. As elected officials, we share a common set of priorities: best serving our community, providing excellent academic opportunities to every student and young person in Douglas County, being good stewards of taxpayer resources, and supporting successful, well-planned community development that accounts for and addresses infrastructure needs. For the school district, these priorities depend on our ability to plan, build, and operate schools where growth is occurring. Sterling Ranch residents have consistently advocated for district-run schools since the beginning of the community's build-out. As a school board director, I must emphasize that our statutory and moral responsibility to educate every child in this county depends on the necessary infrastructure being in place. Now, district staff have shared their intent and their willingness to partner with the county and with the developer to ensure that Sterling Ranch residents are supported by public infrastructure that they are entitled to, including district schools. When development decisions align with educational planning, we all win. Our children thrive, property values remain strong, and taxpayer funds are used efficiently. I respectfully urge you to protect Sterling Ranch residents' access to district-run schools. There is a compromise that works for all of us that I believe we can reach. A responsible alternative that will protect our shared goals and serve the Sterling Ranch community well.
Thank you for your time and your partnership in supporting the families of Douglas County.
Thank you, Director Shutt, for joining us this evening. I'm sorry, Director Thompson. With that, we're going to take about a 5-minute recess and reconvene at 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're going to continue with public testimony, and the next 5 individuals are Amy Winju, Aaron Kane, Dave Gill, Judy Brandberg, and Jackie Millay. Welcome.
And I want to thank, do I talk now?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm Amy Winju, and I'm just speaking on my own accord today. I want to discuss about DCSD and land. In 2022 and 2023, DCSD campaigned for the MLO bond, where they had stated they would be building a middle school and an elementary school in Crystal Valley. Fast forward to January 8th of 2025, when during the Long Range Planning Committee, Richard Cosgrove, the COO of DCSD, stated that Crystal Valley, they no longer are going to be building a middle school there. Speed up to February, and that's when the town of Castle Rock found out that the school district will be returning 20.5 acres back to the developer for, a measly sum of $500,000. I'd like to have $500,000 for prime real estate in Castle Rock. With that, the school board was never informed that this land deal took place. None of the school board directors were aware of that, and that violates school board policy regarding land deed transfers. Why do I bring this up? Because this isn't about Sterling Ranch or John Adams Academy. It is about the district falsely stating that charter schools are not public schools. They are public schools, and all land belongs there. Also, the newly elected school board members, all 4 of them stated that they wanted to keep money in the classroom and not in the courtroom. I hope they keep to that. So thank you very much, and please vote in favor of this amendment.
Thank you, Ms. Winju. Ms. Kane.
Chair, point of procedure, please.
Sure.
Superintendent Kane is obviously the superintendent of the Douglas County School District. As has been pointed out, Chair, by counsel for the applicant, the comments, the referral comments of the school district that Superintendent Kane is the superintendent of have been integrated in our packet. Furthermore, we did hear an objection from counsel for the applicant that perhaps wrongly, staff recommendation actually also included comments from the school district. I object to having Superintendent Kane speak because her organization has had plenty of opportunities to weigh in, and this is an opportunity for everyone else to weigh in and share their opinion with the board. So with respect, Chair, I would ask that we ask Superintendent Kane to take a seat and to listen to the other public comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Teal. I'll refer that to our counsel, Mr. Garcia.
My understanding is as a referral agency, I get 4 minutes.
Ma'am,
Excuse me,
we're
order.
going to have a conversation with our counsel, if that's all right.
So it's not unusual for an individual to put forward an email or written correspondence and still be able to provide testimony. That being said, it does seem as though that she would be speaking in her own capacity because the official statement's already been made. So.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kane, are you speaking in your official capacity or as a
I'm
resident?
speaking as the referral agency that Douglas County School District is as part of this process, and therefore should have 4 minutes, by my understanding.
And therefore, Chair, I once again raise objection to having her speak. We're here to hear from the public. She has had her opportunity. Her organization has already provided extensive comments and participated extensively in the process up until this time. I let my objection stand.
Thank you, Commissioner Teal. Commissioner Van Winkle, any additional thoughts? No. Okay. Out of respect.
May we make a quick record about that? The Douglas County Code and the rules, I believe, specifically allow for referral entities to speak. So I encourage you to just
Chair,
double-check.
are we just going to I know we've heard a lot of great legal opinions and great opinions of state law that have been done today by folks who
There was an hour-long presentation that I get 4 minutes
Okay,
to
I'm
respond to,
gonna
and
ask
now
for
I get
order,
none.
please. I am going to ask for order,
Chair,
please.
Obviously, this is a point of procedure. I think the superintendent needs to be disqualified because she failed to allow the board to engage in a point of procedural discussion. She's shown obvious disrespect and should be excused from the podium.
Well, thank you for those comments, Commissioner Teal. As chair, I'm going to allow 2 minutes of testimony from the superintendent. You are a citizen as well as the superintendent. We do allow for double time for HOAs and metro districts, so if you'd like to proceed with your testimony. And the objection is duly noted in the record.
Thank you. I'd like to note I get 2 minutes to respond to a 1-hour presentation. My name is Erin Kane, and I'm the proud superintendent of Douglas County School District. Prior to serving in this role, I was the founder and director of a very successful public charter school, American Academy, a school I am still incredibly proud of today. Our school district is the top scoring district in the metro area, and our neighborhood and charter schools are all award-winning, and we're proud of all of them. I know that all of us here share the same desire to ensure Douglas County is the best place to live, work, play, and go to school, a vision I believed in 25 years ago when my family moved here, and one I believe in today. We are very proud of all the partnerships we've had in Douglas County, including the partnerships that we have had with this body to develop an incredible nationally recognized school resource officer program, as well as numerous making sure that land is dedicated in the right places. We are grateful for the support for our 2023 MLO and 2024 bond that allows us to build a new school in Sterling Ranch. We recognize that student generation formulas are lower than in years past, and have been working actively to update methodologies to ensure the preservation of land under new schools, mitigate the capital costs of growth, all while making sure that we don't set up land to sit vacantly indefinitely. This is why we reduced from 110 acres, from 255 acres to 110 acres in the case of Sterling Ranch. However, we cannot support this proposal as it stands. It has nothing to do with charter schools and neighborhood schools and everything to do with ensuring that the Sterling Ranch community has schools for the future, including a high school, middle school site, and an additional elementary school site. Lastly, the 2023 letter that I wrote was referenced tonight. If the developer would agree to withdraw the amendment and put an amendment in that follows the terms of that 2023 letter, those terms still stand, and we would withdraw our opposition if that amendment that expressly honors all of those terms in that letter would come forward. I respectfully ask you to withdraw, or excuse me, to delay or withdraw this amendment at this time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Superintendent. And we'll ask for order in the room. And before you sit down, I just wanted to confirm, so in terms of the original Exhibit A, first of all, we did receive all of the letters from your council, as well as the correspondence from Ms. Millay as well, and that's included in the packet. But just wanted to confirm from your testimony that you agree that you did submit this letter of intent, and this is from, I just wanted to authenticate the document.
That letter is authentically from me. We do not believe that this amendment honors the terms in that letter, and we would definitely welcome an amendment that honors all of the terms laid out in that letter, the way that letter is laid out. Additionally, we have a letter from the Colorado Charter School Institute supporting the school district's position for future schools in Sterling Ranch. Thank you.
Okay, did you want to submit that correspondence for inclusion in the record?
Yes, it was submitted, and it has been submitted
just the
tonight. And
original.
it was submitted in advance. I'm not sure
Okay.
why it wasn't in the record.
Is it, and I'll ask council, is that not currently in the packet?
All materials provided by the school board have been.
That's what I thought. Okay, so not a new letter, just the letter that you had.
From the Colorado Charter School Institute. It was sent, I believe, yesterday, but we have it here tonight as well.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate that, Superintendent. The next in line that I had is Dave Gill. Is Dave Gill still testifying? Welcome.
Good evening, Dave Gill. I am a Douglas County resident and have misspent 2 terms on the County Planning Commissioner a few years back, and it has taught me the importance of what you have on the board, and I'd like to address those criteria. 1520-01, absolutely, this meets that criteria. 1520-02, Absolutely yes. 3, absolutely not. Criteria 152004, absolutely not. 152005, absolutely not. 152006, a radical yes. And 152007, yes. As this application, as this amendment clearly meets the criteria, I would ask that you approve it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. And then we have Jackie Millay. Again, I am going to ask for order. No applause, please. Thank you, Ms. Millay.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
As a resident?
Go ahead.
We're going to
I
pause.
was-
Commissioner Van Winkle?
I know he's testifying in his personal capacity today, but treasurer of our county, and suffered a very catastrophic crash not more than a few weeks ago. So just very good to see Mr. Gill here and upright by some miracle. So good to see you, sir.
Agreed. Well stated. Commissioner Teal?
Chair, point of procedure.
Please.
Once again, we have the Chief Operations Officer of the school district coming before us to give public testimony. We obviously did just hear from the superintendent moments ago. I could not help but notice, gentlemen, in our packet is on page 2. We have is it 7-page letter from the Chief Operations Officer of the school district. I would say that I do know Chief Operations Officer Millay well. Indeed, she is a mentor of mine. I assure you, she is very capable of expressing her opinion in a written document that obviously had staff support. Once again, I draw an objection to having her speak, as we have heard from her, and this is an opportunity to hear from the public at large.
Thank you, Commissioner Teal. Your objection has been noted. Commissioner Van Winkle, anything additional on that?
No, just probably difficult to tell someone they aren't allowed to testify at all. If she were to testify in her personal capacity as a resident of Lone Tree, perhaps that would be permitted.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Van Winkle. I think consistent with council's opinion, we'll allow the testimony, and then the objection will be registered for the record. Please.
Thank you,
Yeah.
gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. We've heard multiple times today, this is a straightforward, detailed fix. I would respectfully submit that it is not. The Planning Commission 4-4 vote, and they are charged with interpreting the code that was just referenced. The packed hearing chambers today, the extensive agenda packet with multiple comment letters, the testimony presented from different attorneys, written and verbal, with different opinions and views, the school district as a major stakeholder strongly objecting to this, really demonstrates that this is a significant issue with significant consequences. I think what we all need to keep in mind, and having had the privilege of serving as the mayor of the city of Lone Tree, when you make these decisions, while we may leave, these are lasting legacy decisions, and we're talking about a fundamental change to how school land is dedicated. And I know how seriously you gentlemen take the charge and role that you have, and I want to thank you for being thoughtful and open to comment from the public this evening. I believe the school district is here today to ensure that we have the land, that they have the land needed to serve future students. They cannot make that determination at final plat. Losing a site because funding isn't there at final plat really puts the school district in a very challenging space to serve future growth. Right now, they are expecting 10,000 homes. They're entitled for just over 12,000 homes. That could be a very large difference in the number of children that come into the school district system. Should the 13th Amendment have been in effect, as you gentlemen have heard this evening, the elementary school 51 would not be being built today. Apologies. School demand is tied to build out, not to platting. The placeholder site identified by the applicant does not meet the 90 acres that the school district has identified that they need to build a middle high school site. I know we all care about the community. That's why we're here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you, and please thank you for thoughtfully considering the comments made by the residents and me as a resident today as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Millay, and thank you for your correspondence in the packet. Judy Brandberg.
Thank you so much. My name is Judy Brandberg, and I'm a resident of Douglas County. I am here to object to the 13th Amendment because of the proposed school site designation violates Colorado law and the Douglas County's own subdivision resolution. Under DCSR Article 10, Section 1004.06, the conveyance of land obtained through the county's dedication requirement shall be required prior to the recoordination of the first final plat for the subdivision. The first final plat for the school parcel, the filing 6A exemption plat, recorded July 1st, 2025. It contained no dedication to the county or to DCSD. After that date, dedication cannot be created or imposed. The dedication window closed on July 1st. This parcel is not a Douglas County site, it is not a county site, and it is not a John Adams site. I have standing on this parcel. In 2003, I filed the original charter application designating the Sterling Ranch land and also Crystal Valley, which is currently on appeal before the Colorado Court of Appeals, long before the unlawful and fraudulent exemption was processed by John Adams. My rights existed first, and the 13th Amendment cannot retroactively erase those rights. A vote now to approve an unlawful school site designation that never occurred will make the BOCC complicit in a fraudulent land racketeering act, now under federal review and also in the Court of Appeals and Denver District Court. Vote no to approve a school site designation that violates the subdivision law, contradicts Article 10 requirements, conflicts with the recorded plat, and is contradicted by DCSD's own admissions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to ask for the next five to come up. It's Leah Ratfael, Suzanne Burnell, Matt Smith, Ellie Reynolds, and Aaron Stevens. And I'll just advise, too, if you've heard something that has on your heart that you wanted to share, you are not required to testify if you've already signed up. So don't feel as though if you've signed up, you have to say something that maybe you've already heard. But we certainly welcome your comments. So we'll start with Leah Ratfali. Is Leah here? Okay, we're going to move on to Suzanne Burnell. Welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for your service to our community. My name is Suzanne Burnell, B-U-R-N-E-L-L. I just want to speak for a moment about transparency. I think we have a very, obviously from the number of speakers, very complex and, a very concerned community. But the type of notice that we've received has been, I'll say, lacking. We'd had prior speakers speak to that or mention that. I'm a Sterling Ranch resident. I have received numerous informational emails and updates and a glossy brochure on our cattle drive, the actual route the cattle will take, the traffic impacts. I've received numerous messages about the pickleball schedule, about our Christmas markets. It's all great. But what this issue is so important to the germane, to the future of our community, to the fabric, to the choices educationally that our families will need and will have available to them. So to have really before the Planning Commission a dense paragraph, 10-point font, making some obscure mention to call the Douglas County for more information, to have yesterday one email sent out in a holiday reminder that said come to the Douglas County meeting about Amendment 13. That's it. That's all the Douglas County, the Sterling Ranch residents that I know of have received. And that's just sad when it comes, we've had a packed room here, but I think that speaks more to word of mouth. And that also speaks to the confusion that I think a lot of Ms. Beckman referenced on social media. We haven't had clear information. We haven't had a reference to the agenda packet for tonight. We didn't have a reference for the agenda packet to the Planning Commission. So I would really ask you to think about the public perception here. It feels very lack of transparency. It feels very shady. It feels shady. It feels rushed. It feels shady, even if it isn't. So I'd actually ask you to consider to perhaps delay or at least deny this application until there can be further public input. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, ma'am. And I'm going to pause there as a point of personal privilege and just go back to the record with council. I believe we certified the agenda earlier tonight. Was proper notice provided to the public, and was the agenda packet included?
Notice was provided, and let me look. It was provided, and then it was continued. So there has been at least 2 periods of public notice and posting.
With the packet?
From the county, yes. That was available through our website if you'd have clicked
With
on
our
the link.
posting, okay. Just wanted to clarify. Thank you very much for that. Returning to testimony, we have Matt Smith. Welcome.
Hey, good evening, Matt Smith, Common Spelling. I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to play one up here tonight. What is a charter school? A charter school is a tuition-free public school operated by an independent board of directors that may be composed of parents, teachers, and community members. My source for that is the Douglas County School District website. So we're here tonight to talk about allocating land inside of Sterling Ranch to public schools, which charter schools, certainly meet that definition under state law and by the Douglas County School District's own website. Earlier, Commissioner Layton, you asked why it took so long to get a school in Sterling Ranch, and I was in the Douglas County School Board meetings when a lot of that was taking place, and charter schools have been repeatedly denied for years. There could be fully functioning operating schools in Sterling Ranch right now, if not for the denial of the Douglas County School Board. After this last election, we have a very hostile board coming in to the Douglas County School District. One of those was endorsed by the Colorado Working Families Party, which had to, essentially fill out a questionnaire agreeing on a moratorium for all charter schools inside of this district. It's very important for residents to have school choice. I don't care if it's in Castle Rock or Sterling Ranch, and that's what we need to make sure that we provide. Charter schools are public schools, and if this land is being allocated for public schools, then it sounds like the intent has been met, and John Adams, deserves to be on that land, and we should not even be here as part of this dispute. I encourage you to vote yes on this amendment tonight, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I'm going to call up Ellie Reynolds, and as we do that, I'll call again for Aaron Stevens. We have Stephanie Muth, Lindsay Dumas, Amy Larson, and then Doug Chestnut, if you want to join us at the podium, please. Ms. Reynolds.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Ellie Reynolds, and I live in Sterling Ranch. I own multiple businesses located in Douglas County, and I am the mother of 2 young boys. I also have the privilege of serving as the co-founder and board chair of John Adams Academy, Douglas County, Sterling Ranch. Unlike many here tonight, I am not an educator by profession. I'm a mom and a community member who believes deeply in education and what it can provide for our children. My commitment to this academy is deeply personal. Like so many parents, I want my kids to grow up grounded in truth, character, and civic responsibility, and that's what led me here today. Our vision statement is both ambitious and deeply relevant to the times and tonight. John Adams Academy is restoring America's heritage by developing servant leaders who are keepers and defenders of the principles of freedom for which our founding fathers pledged their lives, fortune, and sacred honor. That vision isn't about politics, it's about principles, about raising young people who critically serve humbly and understand the roots of liberty and civic virtue. Our mission statement explains how we achieve this. Through an American classical leadership education rooted in liberal arts and the classics, shaped by core values and great mentors, and designed to empower scholars to seek the truth while cultivating wisdom and virtue. We are not just preparing students for tests, we're preparing them to lead their lives and to lead with courage. In recent months, our school has become the target of painful and frankly shocking comments from social media by organizations and individuals tonight. People have called us a Nazi indoctrination camp. The page Douglas County parents ran by the Teachers Union have said we are a mega training school. The Douglas County Watch has labeled us a school for white Christian nationalists. As a resident who has another resident who has a podcast, Red County Blue State, at a public meeting, she said, "You don't know who you're messing with, but we will burn your house down." Let me be very clear, those statements are hurtful, not just to me, but to the over 600 parents that we represent and are pouring our time into. We continue to engage with respect and operate transparency and focus on what matters, our scholars, because they are learning that freedom requires both courage and virtue as parents and mentors, and tonight we're showing up for them.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to call again for Aaron Stevens. Is Aaron Stevens here? Okay. We're going to move on then to Stephanie Muth. Okay, welcome.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Stephanie Muth, and I'm asking you to vote yes on this proposed amendment. Excuse me. Both neighborhood schools and charter schools are public institutions serving our community's children, and they deserve equal access to land for their facilities. This amendment assures that all public schools are treated fairly under the same rules and have the same opportunities to serve families. In my own family, my brother attended our local public school, while I attended our public charter school. Having both options made an enormous difference for us. It allowed each of us to learn in the environment in which we thrived. It gave my parents the ability to choose what worked best for each of their children. Families across the county deserve that same flexibility. Approving this amendment will expand access to high-quality educational options and allow families to choose the learning environment that best fits their children's needs. Fair treatment for charter schools ultimately means more choices and stronger outcomes for students across the county. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration, and I hope you do vote yes on this amendment.
Thank you, Ms. Muth. I appreciate that. Lindsay Dumas? Amy Larson? Doug Chestnut? Welcome.
My name is Doug Chestnut, C-H-E-S-T-N-U-T-T. I'm here. I've been listening and researching this, and I'm pretty much against public schools. They've become government schools when you have 13-year-olds and 12-year-olds that can have chemical castration and things without the parents' knowledge. It's very despicable. And I know a lot of public school teachers that have gotten out of public schools that are phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I think parents should have a choice, whether it's a public school. I think they're government schools. That's my deal. But I think charter schools are great. I think homeschooling is great. But I think on your approval criteria, Sterling Ranch, this thing I'm asking you to vote no. And the reason I'm going to ask you to vote no is what Mr. Smithhill said. You know, it took 8 years to get something approved, but yet in the language that they're proposing, if in 5 years something doesn't get done, they can buy it back. And that's the biggest problem I see here is we're having a backpedaling, a shell game, musical schools, and I don't think it should be home schools, charter schools, public schools, government schools. I mean, you're back and forth on that, but the key is their commitment for the land needs to be there. And I think that's what we're all missing here is it needs to meet the criteria. They committed to that. They need to have that. And the way the timeline is, I think you would have a benefit to Sterling Ranch that if they go bankrupt or things don't happen in that 5-year window, the county and the citizens and the taxpayers lose. And on the roads, where they moved that by Braley Acres on the one school, and the roads don't keep up with things. They're not keeping up with things now. So I ask you respectfully to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chestnut. I'm going to ask the next 5 to come up if we could. Duran Feeney, Frank McNulty, Kim Carroll, Matt Plitnick, and Megan Silverthorne. And we'll start with Duran Feeney. Welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Duran Feeney. I live in Douglas County. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My daughter is enrolled and planning on going to John Adams Academy next fall. I would like to see it clarified that neighborhood and charter schools are each treated equally. I understand that the amendment places all sorts of public schools on equal footing in all land use processes. It protects students and parents' access to education everywhere and promotes educational opportunity. I would like you to vote yes on the land use amendment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Feeney. Mr. Frank McNulty. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, my name is Frank McNulty. I'm from Highlands Ranch, Colorado. And for some perspective, Highlands Ranch is on its 80th amendment, so well under the mark set by Highlands Ranch. Commissioners, I spent time as a Charter School Institute director As a CSI director, we had many charter school applications come through. Some of those applications I didn't agree with. They were schools that I wouldn't send my kid to, but they met the criteria. And so, as a school choice advocate, I voted to approve those charter schools. But one thing was never a question during all of those considerations, and that is charter schools are public schools. And tonight, commissioners, it is tonight, you have the opportunity to end this type of discrimination against some of our public schools. It is unfortunate that the school district continues to discriminate against charter schools in not providing the resources available to them in order to be successful. One of the examples is in Western Highlands Ranch, where repeated attempts by charter school parents to start a school in Highlands Ranch were rebuffed. They weren't allowed to take possession of the school land there, and now, instead of a school, sit homes. Brings me to my next point, the land banking by the school district. Thousands of acres, over 1,000 acres held by the school district, some of which for decades have been in possession and not used for schools. Some of that land has been sold off. You've heard examples of that here tonight. The school district should not be in the business of banking land and then flipping it at a later date or simply holding on to it in perpetuity. Commissioners, you have the opportunity to end both of these practices here with an affirmative vote on Amendment 13. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. McNulty. With that, we're going to move on to Kim Carroll. Welcome.
Welcome, or thank you for welcoming me. Hi, my name is Kim Carroll. I live in Parker, and I come here as a retired taxpayer and a strong supporter of public education. I'm speaking in opposition to Amendment 13. I've read the state statutes in the Sterling Ranch Development Plan and believe the amendment would be in violation of state law. I believe that charter schools serve a necessary purpose in our public education system. I don't think anyone has argued that they're not public schools, because they are. But the majority of children in Douglas County do attend neighborhood schools, and many kids that attend charter schools then go on to neighborhood high schools. Most of my neighbors went through 8th grade to a charter school and then went on to Chaparral. The school district and the county have always worked together to make our school system one of the best in the state. And as Superintendent Kane stated, I think we are the best in the state now, if not one of the best, the best. So if you vote to pass this amendment, you will be going against the express wishes of the school district and the legal opinion of the school district. You will break the trust and the goodwill that has been built up between the county government and the district. I suspect that Sterling Ranch knew they were going to try to get this amendment passed when they conveyed the land to JAA. This issue should have been negotiated then. If they thought that this was going to be part of their 110 acres, then they should have gone to the school district and said, this is what we're going to do. And I guess since I still have a few seconds left, I'm confused as to why this seems to have become an argument against parental choice. The school, JAA, is being built. They have the charter school. The argument now is, can they subtract it from the 110 acres? I don't believe they can under the Colorado state statute. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And we'll call up Megan Silverthorne. And as you come up, Ms. Silverthorne, I'm going to call up the final 5. Meredith Rudolph, Ryan Marsh, Alex Malone, Sam Ritter, and I guess, yeah, that's our last one, Mr. Ritter. Ms. Silverthorne.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. For those who don't know, my name is Megan Silverthorne, and I was a school board director from 2009 to 2017, and I served as its president from late 2015 until I was term limited in 2017. I've also been a charter school advocate for all of those 16 years since I was elected to the school board. And I want to comment on what I'm seeing unfold here. I'm a private citizen. I'm nobody. I'm not. I don't sit on any elected boards or commissions. But I've always, my observation from the very beginning was that Sterling Ranch was a strong partner to the Douglas County School District and to Douglas County at large. I appreciate everything that they have done and continue to do for the school district, for the people of Douglas County, and for the community at large. And I've had a front row seat to the demographic changes since I've been, was elected to the school board. And even back at the beginning of my first term, they were warning us, this is what's going to happen. The Great Recession is causing birth rates to decline. There are going to be a shift in population and schools are going to have to close. And now we're seeing some of that unfold, and there's been quite a shift in things that have been going on in the school district and in the county. And my observation with this particular issue is that the school district communications have been kind of unfortunate, honestly, with threats of lawsuits, rhetoric from board directors about what constitute true public schools, as if the charter school that is sitting here on your agenda, as part of your agenda, is not a true public school. And then the lawsuit issue, as other commenters are pointing out, with the requests of the public for tax increases and then coming to sue over this issue, it's quite unfortunate. Meanwhile, the district isn't ready but for the one school, and they haven't been ready, and and the question is, will they be ready? Public trust in education is in the basement. No other sector has seen the loss of trust as it has, and so buying into the rhetoric that creates misinformation is going to contribute to that lack of public trust. I'd encourage you to vote yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Silverthorne. Meredith Rudolph, welcome.
Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me to have this opportunity to speak tonight. I've been a Douglas County resident for more than 40 years. I fought very hard to get the school board in with Megan Silverthorne and the previous conservative board because we needed more charter schools, and we saw an explosion in charter schools. 25% of our students are charter school students. And I've noticed with the successive boards that they haven't been approving charter schools, which is why charter schools usually have to go to the state, because the board is very hostile towards charter schools. And you've heard it over and over again, the argument that they've tried to make that it's not a public school. And it's absolutely public. They've even tried to withhold funding with MLO bonds and mill that the entire residents of Douglas County pay. And now to hear that if they don't get their way, they're going to sue with the money that they just made me pay in my taxes is just insane. And to remind everyone, we have open enrollment in Douglas County. Charter schools are public schools. And I find it just insane that here the Smiths helped raise money for an MLO, and now they're going to get sued. I would encourage you to please vote for Amendment 13. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rudolph. Ryan Marsh, welcome.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Ryan Marsh, M-A-R-S-H. I was going to say good afternoon, but I think it is this evening. I'm proud to work here in Douglas County. I'm here today to express my support for school choice in our community. As parents, we understand what type of education is best for our children. In growing communities like Douglas County, public charter schools can help address overcrowding and regional busing issues. New neighborhoods deserve their own public schools. If the district is unable to build schools for the children in these new areas, then public charter schools represent one of the viable alternatives to transporting students to neighboring cities. I urge you to vote yes for school choice, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Alex Malone. Okay, and then we have a Sam Ritter. Welcome.
Hello and good evening. My name is Sam Ritter, R-I-T-T-E-R. I am a Sterling Ranch resident, a mother of a 1-year-old, a prior U.S. Army veteran. I live 3 minutes from the JAA land parcel. The developers mentioned declining birth rates and closing schools in the county, yet they skimmed over the fact that Sterling Ranch has one of the highest ratios of young children in Douglas County. DCSD reported that the number of students living here increased 40% from 2022 to 2023 alone. And when the community is fully built, we are projected to have more than 3,000 aged students. DCSD has been clear that serving that population requires 98 additional acres, not the 72 this amendment would leave them with. Speakers tonight have mentioned school choice. A charter is already opening in Sterling Ranch. John Adams Academy will serve all grade levels and 1,000 students. Based on the survey data shared today, about 25% of Sterling Ranch families prefer non-public options. That need is fully met through JAA. Every remaining school site must go to DCSD if we expect to meet the need of the thousands of public school students who live and will live here. It is also important to recognize that the arguments that land should not sit idle does not match the reality of a 20-plus year build-out. Many parcels have sat undeveloped for reasons that have nothing to do with schools. Responsible planning takes time, and that is normal. For a community that will soon have thousands of children, reducing land, delaying dedication, or allowing school sites to be lost is not responsible planning. Sterling Ranch families were promised public school land, and we need every acre originally committed. I am asking you to revise Amendment 13 so that all school dedication acres remain public, remain protected, and remain available for the long-term needs of this community. School land must stay in the public's control. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ritter. So with that, citizen comment is closed. I think we have all of the folks that have signed up on all of our lists, and we'll submit that to the clerk. At this time, I'm going to ask the applicant to respond to citizen comment. We have a sign-up sheet.
You don't want to accommodate the movie? Okay. Cool.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'll start with some response, and then, of course, Brock Smithels, President of Sterling Ranch Development, will also come up, and then we'll probably go over the approval criteria one more time. I did think it was interesting that one of the speakers brought up the fact that Highlands Ranch has 80 amendments already. And so we're on 13. We know we're a pretty new community, but I've heard a lot about broken promises and doing these PD amendments. And that's not what this PD amendment is about. It is really a change of circumstance. And it is a true change of circumstance because of John Adams Estate Charter School. The reason behind, even in the community, why John Adams came about was when the school district let the development company and the community authority board know that the Solstice residents were going to have first dibs on attending School 51, and that probably only our villages in Prospect and Ascent, those neighborhoods were going to be able to attend the School 51. People in our community said we need another school, and there was not enough money in the Douglas County School District budget. There's not enough money for a new school for years. I don't know if there is anything in their long-term capital plans for another elementary school in Sterling Ranch, and so they got together and they formed a charter school. And let me remind everyone that the school board voted to release John Adams, and Colorado's Charter School Institute approved it. And so that's a change of circumstance that we're talking about tonight, and why the PD amendment, for various reasons, some of it is technical, but why we're here trying to change this PD amendment to allow for a charter school to get some of that dedicated land. I want to talk about noticing. So when we do land use, the noticing is pretty extensive. Of course, we post, and I think we posted 12 or so signs around the community. And we publish in the Douglas County newspaper, and then we do developer notices. These notices they're not a referral packet by any means, but what they do is they give a number to planning, and your planning department is great. When you call, there's a live person, they'll talk to you, and it gives a case number. If you go to the case number on your website, it says Douglas County Planning, and you can punch in that number and you can open up every single document, a file with every single document that is in the files that we're dealing with today. So our noticing, I think for this was, I think we spent about $17,000 on noticing, and it's a pretty extensive. We try to let people know what is going on in the community. The amendment does not limit the school district from building schools. In the referral letter, I think we have to really identify what the problem is. In the first referral letter, and I do think they've had 3 or 4, I know they've had many referral letters, and they are all different. The first referral letter said, we have an issue. There is great voter fatigue when it comes to Douglas County School District, and getting a bond approval is difficult. And we know it's difficult. We know that Highlands Ranch schools are losing students, so people are getting older and they don't have kids, so they don't vote for bond issues. I mean, it's a real problem. They can't get the funding. We needed another school in Sterling Ranch, and that's why parents created the John Adams Charter School. And then I want to talk about the term sheet. I will agree that we didn't take word for word the term sheet. It was our best and last guidance. And I work with a team of consultants also. We are redoing a lot of PD amendments this summer. That has been my task. It is basically, though, a lot of the same things. 110 acres. We'll notify the school district in a preliminary plan. That's early. We'll have to identify a site if there's a need and if there's funding. I think that is pretty based on state law, and it's based on what the county commissioners did when they turned the land over for School 51. Your staff report very clearly said critical need and funding, and that's what we would like to do. And then the cash in lieu, which is basically, we want schools. We want to build schools. We don't want to pay cash in lieu for land. But in case there is a need for that land not to be utilized, we would like to buy it back and develop it. The actual application also allows, it's very clear, if the school district doesn't have funding for that north site, because we've got a lot of land out in Sterling Ranch, if they don't find funding in a time, preliminary plans about 10 years, for the final plat would be many years, then the developer can buy the land or it can find other suitable land in Sterling Ranch. And so that's an option that really allows your neighborhoods to be very vibrant and continue to build, and it also allows for schools to have an opportunity for school land. Because the one thing I know is the Sterling Ranch development and the Smethels family, they want schools. They want schools. They want public schools. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to have Brock come up, and then I'll come up one more time so that we can go through the approval criteria.
Thank you, Ms. Beckman. Mr. Smethels.
Good evening, Commissioners. I have prepared remarks, and then I have a few things that I want to address at the end. My name is Brock Smethels, as I mentioned. My address is 8155 Piney River Avenue, Sterling Ranch, 80125. I'm here tonight to provide historical context surrounding this proposed PD amendment. My family started Sterling Ranch in 2001. We did not inherit this property. We did not chance into becoming developers of this project. My father was the CFO of Coors in the late 80s and early 90s, helping to secure a permanent water and wastewater system for the town of Golden and the Coors Brewery during his tenure at Coors. My mother was a VP of marketing for lot sales and development for Trammell Crow Development and was appointed to the Federal Home Loan Bank Board by President Ronald Reagan prior to setting aside her successful career to be a stay-at-home parent. As third-generation Coloradans, they recognize the success, a lot of it due to the great communities of Douglas County, of Highlands Ranch, Parker, Castle Rock, and Lone Tree, and wanted to build a new 21st century community in Sterling Ranch. It has been a success, as Sterling Ranch is the best-selling master plan community in Colorado again this year, and is the only one from our state that made the top 50 nationwide from the state of Colorado through the first 6 months of 2025. For context, 5 to 10 years ago, generally there'd be 2 or 3 communities from Colorado on that list. It has dwindled down to generally only one makes it on the top 50 nationwide lists for RCL Co. or John Burns. I officially joined Sterling Ranch in 2013, but I attended community meetings, neighborhood events, and interacted with homeowners in Roxborough, Plum Valley, and the broader Chatfield Valley since I was in middle school as part of our truly Colorado-based family business. Sterling Ranch has a unique arrangement in our PD where the school board has a seat at the table to determine the size, timing, and layout of school sites. This is not a common arrangement, and in almost all other municipalities in Douglas County and other PDs in Douglas County, the school district is merely a referral agency that is allowed to opine but in no way has land use authority over development with regards to schools. We are here tonight to change that so that we are in better alignment with state law in giving Douglas County, the commissioners, land use authority where it belongs, and to determine this timing, size, and location of school land dedication in Sterling Ranch, including to all schools, such as charter schools. You may ask why this change is being sought now. Well, since my time at Sterling Ranch, I've worked with 6 different school board compositions, I believe now 7, if you include the board that was elected just 2 weeks ago. I've also worked with 5 different tenures of superintendents over these years as the pendulum has swung between different ideological beliefs with regards to education. To give you an idea of how impactful this is on a community, I was working with Superintendent Wise on a land dedication agreement when he was summarily fired by the school board and replaced with Aaron Kane. This started that entire process over again from scratch. And the new administration was equally as hostile towards land dedication for charter schools in the event that the district couldn't afford to build on school land that was requested of us. To illustrate this point, since 2010, Douglas County's population has grown by 106,906 residents, which represents a 37% increase in population. However, since that time, only 3 new school facilities have been constructed out of the 45-plus district schools within the district, and most of those are not full neighborhood schools. As you can see, we're having a mixed match of school construction and population. Unfortunately, some of the testimony today from the school district are misstatements that I would like to clarify. Sterling Ranch Development Company has continued to engage with the school district staff regarding land dedication. I myself have had, I believe, over 5 meetings with Jackie Millay throughout this process and in the past 3 months, in addition to several phone calls to try to come to an amicable resolution. We dedicated 12.4 acres of land to an elementary school in 2015. And in that referral letter, it stated that that school was intended to be a charter school, not a DCSD school. Obviously, we've heard today that School 51 is being built on that site. So the school district changed their minds with regards to which public school best served the needs of the community. However, by doing that change, they most likely delayed us getting a school by 9 years. In addition, Shea Homes has 15.8 acres north of us in Solstice that even though all 1,000 homes have been platted, that site has not been dedicated. And their PD allowed them not to dedicate it until there was need. So there is a difference in how we are treated currently within the current subdivision regulations regarding both Sterling Ranch and Solstice. Most likely that school will not be built on and will be fee and lieu back to Shea as the developer. District staff have indicated to us that almost half of the capacity of our new Douglas County School District, School 51, will be for Solstice kids, and that ultimately Sterling Ranch kids from Ascent Village will be bused to Highlands Ranch to make room for them. And Jackie has mentioned that that has not been approved by the board, but that was referenced to us by staff members about six to 9 months ago. In addition, we've heard that the school district would most likely build 1 elementary, 1 middle, and 1 high school over the build out of Sterling Ranch, although 5 school sites were requested. And yet charter schools under the correspondence with the school district are not to be included in those 5 school sites. And therein lies the challenge, is that we want public schools, all public schools. And if the district does not have the resources to build public schools within a reasonable time frame of build out of our community, charters are a viable option. That is how we have 2 public schools coming to Sterling Ranch today, is not because of the district. It is because of the district's building one and the charter school is building another through the state. And all we are asking for is to build public schools. And that is the intent of this 5th PD amendment. And then finally, one thing I'd also like to add, we are in Thunder Ridge feeder areas, or we are in the Thunder Ridge feeder area. And Highlands Ranch Elementary School enrollment is expected to decline 39% between 2012 and 2028, culminating in 2 school closures this year. A concern that I have is that our children will continue to be bused out of Sterling Ranch to go to Highlands Ranch to keep those schools at occupancy. And ultimately, as we've heard from all the homeowners here today, they want public schools in Sterling Ranch. We want public schools in Sterling Ranch. And charters, like I said, if the district cannot achieve that through a public bond election, charters are a viable option. The district has not been willing in the past to allow that. Several of the homeowners this afternoon have unfortunately been misled by the school district. The comments have been with regards to this proposed amendment, meaning that no new district school land will ever be dedicated, and therefore no new school district schools will be built. This is false. All this amendment does is the following: agree to the 110 acres requested for public schools by Douglas County School District. State that there is a process for identification of these school sites, and the land will not be improved with infrastructure and legally conveyed to DCSD if they do not have funding. Douglas County already does this. The Filing One school site was not conveyed from Douglas County in trust to Douglas County School District until the bond election had passed. John Adams did not receive their school site until they received their charter, and they had already completed their financing. Under state statute, developers retain a 20-year right of first refusal on school sites if the land has been conveyed to the county in trust. We would rather not convey land to the county for the purposes of us building a school only to buy it back later should Douglas County School District not have sufficient funding to construct. That was why we tried to build in a mechanism such that what just happened in Crystal Valley would not happen within our own community. In the event that Douglas County School District does not have the funding, the land can be offered to a charter school as an alternative to satisfy that land dedication requirement, which is a reasonable request. The purpose of land dedication in the Colorado Revised Statutes is not for the county to hold school district land in trust in perpetuity to later be sold to raise money for the school district. It is for the purposes of building public schools. Finally, in lieu of having vacant ground sit for 20 years, excuse me, please help us remove the political uncertainty of having 2 masters to serve Douglas County School District and Douglas County. Every other developer in Douglas County only has their land use authority to work with, as outlined in the Douglas County subdivision resolution. And we would like to return that premise while allowing charters to be able to succeed in the event the district is unable to perform. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Smethels. Ms. Beckman, did you have anything additional? Or anybody else from the Sterling Ranch team?
If there are no questions, I do have some comments, but I certainly ask the board if there are any questions of the applicant.
Normally, we'll let the applicant respond to citizen comment, and then we'll bring it back to the board for additional discussion or questions.
I would like to respond. This is off the cuff, so I apologize. I don't have any prepared remarks on this. I have been working very diligently with Jackie as the COO of the school district to try to come to a resolution that is amicable for both sides. In their packet that they sent, they have conditions of approval where they're asking for 110 net usable acres of land to the school district within the Sterling Ranch PD. Where I'm not willing to concede is that John Adams is not a public school, but I would be willing to increase the amount of land from 110 acres so that the district would have a sufficient 80-acre site north of Titan in order to build a public school for the school district on a combined middle and high. I believe it is very important for our community. And hearing from public testimony that we have that, our intent, and I want our homeowners to hear this, our intent is not to not have a public DCSD high school. Our intent is to try and make sure we don't have vacant land that sits undeveloped. And so for that, I'd be willing to change this PD amendment to increase the amount of land sufficiently so that they have an 80-acre site north of Titan to build a district school. In addition, they have that they would like to not have fee in lieu requested until certain build-out triggers are met. And I would be willing to offer that at the 50% that they are requesting. They actually said 90% at full build-out for cash in lieu. Obviously, at 90%, the entire community will be built out, so that won't work. But would be happy to come up with a compromise on that for the school district. And with that, I do believe that that would offer a solution where we recognize John Adams Academy and our land dedication requirement as a public school, because charter schools are public schools, but the district would have sufficient land to build a district school and not have the timing constraints that the district is worried about to secure financing for that school. I do think the one caveat that is important to just put on the record and try to clear up is the way the county subdivision process works is you preliminary plan a subdivision and then you final plat. And when you final plat, there's something called the subdivision improvement agreement. And in that subdivision improvement agreement, it's a binding obligation of the developer to improve the land sufficient for construction. And what we tried to do with the district, and I believe Jackie is in support of this, is not plat land for the school district when they do not have funding, because we are then obligated to build improvements. And so, you know, a lot of the conversation tonight, a lot of the legal analysis from the school district is around this platting process, that's not sufficient time. In reality, what we offered was, we'll preliminary plan land, and actually in the, you know, in the term sheet of the school district that Aaron Kane provided, they had, after a preliminary plan was approved, a 5-year period before we platted the site. So ultimately, our request would be, you know, we won't plat a school district site until there's sufficient funding available, and that we would, you know, not request a fee in lieu until a reasonable build out for specific to the middle and high school site. And those are amendments that hopefully would bring some mediation to this, so that it's not just a all district or all charter school solution for the parties. But with that, that is, you know, off the cuff, specific to the application for the county attorney. What I would request is we would do a condition of approval to tweak the 13th Amendment to effectively meet those requests that I did, and that way there would be, you know, like I said, some better compromise amongst the parties.
Well, I will say, as an attorney for most of my career, somebody who specifically worked in advanced negotiation, I really appreciate when leaders in our community offer up concessions and try to work well as regional partners. I think that is a massive concession. As a part of our process, I would first ask, are you okay with the 2 conditions as presented?
I am.
Okay. One of those conditions is that all commitments and promises made by the applicant during your testimony or agreed to would be relied upon by the Board of County Commissioners, which would include that concession.
That is okay, yeah.
Okay. With that, I would
I would clarify that, Commissioner, that I would obviously want to work with Douglas County staff on the specific wording and the triggers of that associated to try and come into better alignment with what the district is requesting. But yes, I would be fine with that condition.
I understand, Mr. Smith. I'll say thank you. We'd be pleased to have the school district respond to the concession that was provided on the record. Superintendent Kane?
Thank you so much. Yes, we are very interested in working with the Smethels organization in order to come up with a great compromise. The school district has never taken the position that a charter school is not a public school. Certainly, I have never taken such a position. And increasing the acreage in order to add the 26 from JAA to a total of 136 is completely fine with the school district from that perspective. We would ask, however, if we could have a little time with Mr. Smethels to really iron out. We very much want to come to an agreement as well. Everybody wants schools in Sterling Ranch. I think we all want the same thing. But we do need a little time not doing it, at night on the cuff. It would be really great to be able to sit down and come up with a really solid agreement based on the term sheet from 2023. It's really hard to agree to details on the cuff, but we certainly agree with, in concept, adding 26 acres to 110. We've never contended that a charter school is not a public school. We love our charter schools.
Thank you, Superintendent Kane. So the options legally before the board tonight are either to approve the application as presented with the concessions and the 2 conditions, or we can continue this. This is the applicant's application. Let me ask Mr. Smethels about the response from the school district.
To clarify, the amount of acreage would go from 110 to around 125, not the 136, but it would be sufficient so that there'd be a public school north of Titan. And then I just want to clarify on the record for the fee in lieu, what I was saying is we will, for that middle high site, put that condition of 50% build out before we would request a fee in lieu of that middle and high site, so that there's time for the district to truly understand the student generation in the community. But with that, those would be the concessions that I would be asking for on a vote from the board to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Smethels. I understand that, and before you leave, I think the question that we're asking is not necessarily the details of the conversation. It sounds like the request is either to make a decision this evening or to continue this for further discussion with the Board of Education and the school district.
Request a vote this evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so with that, I'm going to bring it back to the board for further discussion and or a motion.
Well, thank you. And thank you all for joining us today, sticking with us for the long hours, and for the tremendous amount of public outpouring of both support and opposition to this. As it comes down to us as county commissioners, this is not a legislative matter. This is a quasi-judicial matter. And therefore, you may have noticed that we were rather quiet during the hearing. And that's because sitting here almost as a judge in a black robe, trying to determine if this meets the approval criteria or does it not. A fundamental question before us today is the approval criteria in approving the application before us. And to analyze that correctly, we must first definitively answer whether charter schools are, in the eyes of the law and thus in land use, fully and equitable public schools. Now, I hold my own strong opinions in this matter, having 2 children at a charter school here in Douglas County. But in this instance, we can't lean upon my strong feelings, but I lean upon state law. Per state law, and state law is consistent throughout statutes, especially in 22, which I have before me here, which governs the public schools of Colorado. Charter schools are explicitly defined as public schools. We don't have to guess upon the definition or wonder or ponder or even argue. Article 1, Section 1 of the statute clearly states that a charter school is a public school, and this is a quote, "A charter school is a public school that operates pursuant to a charter contract entered into pursuant to the provisions of Article 30 of this title. Charter school includes, quote, any type of charter school created pursuant to this title." There's other definitions across all statute that say, quote, "A charter school is a public school that operates pursuant," well, I could read all day about statutes like that. But a charter school, but state law also continues to remove any ambiguity because they don't just define charter school or public school. It defines local education provider, which I think in this case of a land use question is a particularly important question, is the definition of what is a local education provider, which hundreds of times throughout statutes defines local education provider to mean, quote, "a school district, a board of cooperative services, a district charter school, or an institute charter school." The key term local education provider used throughout statute, and which is before us here in land use, makes no distinction between a public charter school or the kind that it lists. The definitions are clear and undefined. The question of equal treatment, or therefore, the core question before us today is of equal treatment regarding land dedication and the approval criteria. So should we follow state law and treat all, quote, local education providers equally, regardless of whether they receive a district charter or a state charter? In other words, should all public schools be treated equally under the law, or may we discriminate against one type of public school over the other based on where the charter came from? I, for one, Commissioner, find it very difficult to ignore state law or attempt to supersede it or ignore it by creating a distinction in Douglas County where none exists in the statute between a district-approved charter school and a state-approved charter school. Therefore, approving this based on equal standing an approval of this would not alter the number of public schools, nor would it force any child to attend one school or another. Given the clear statutory definitions, I find it exceptionally difficult to justify creating a difference in law here in Douglas County and in our land use rules where none exists in the state.
Thank you, Commissioner Van Winkle. Commissioner Teal.
Well, I mean, I agree with that. The reality is our decision here today, our responsibility is to provide for proper land use planning so that schools are allowed, are provided for in one way or another. And we've kind of gone through some of the ways that that happens, whether it's a full land dedication or establishing the in lieu payments. With John Adams Charter School going in, that's gonna be a school. And per the definition, Commissioner, that you just read, it just strikes me that that is a school, that counts. The fact that it is a charter school, it's a public school. My children are grown, but both of my children attended charter schools growing up. They received fine educations as Douglas County residents. So the bottom line is, I do think it's right and appropriate to accommodate the developer and recognize this as a dedication of school land for John Adams Academy. I very much do appreciate the condition offered up by the applicant because, yeah, there is that math that the school district must do on what kind of school can go on what kind of acreage. So I think that's a astute analysis by the applicant, and I support it. I support it to the point that if it pleases the board, I do have a motion to approve Sterling Ranch Plan Development, 13th Amendment, Major Planned Development Amendment, because it does meet all of the approval criteria, as we see listed here, with the two conditions as presented by the applicant. Project file is ZR 2025-009, and I'm happy to continue discussion if necessary.
Well, I will second that motion, given the fact that it won't alter the total number of public schools that will ultimately be serving this community.
Okay, so we have a first and second on the floor. Any further discussion? Okay, well, thank you, gentlemen. I tend to agree with both of you, and the question posed by council early on I find very salient, that it's really the inquiry of, is this the role of the county? And secondly, can land be dedicated to a charter school that would be used as a public school? Can land dedication to a charter school count as a public school? The role of the county is as a land use authority. I think that's a pretty settled matter of law. And the second issue around whether or not a charter school would count as a public school is also very well settled. It is a public school. So I think both of those issues are fairly well settled in my mind. In reviewing the packet, listening to the testimony, and all of the legal approval criteria in 1520-01 et sequitur, I do believe all the legal criteria have been met. I want to recognize that the applicant made a really significant concession on the record, I think as a regional partner to try to accommodate the needs of the school district. I understand that that will probably need some additional time to iron out in terms of specifics, but I don't foresee that an approval tonight would limit the ability for the school district to work out those details. You're both represented by very competent counsel on both sides, between Brownstein and Davis. I'm not sure there is more competent counsel in the state of Colorado. So glad you're both here. I think in that regard, just going into my 8th year now as a county commissioner, we have often said we do not wait to do great. And when a good decision has met its time to make a decision. And, you know, I had a wonderful mentor in the community that often would say, You know, you make your decision, I'll make mine. And I think for better part of the last 15 years, we were very open to the school district making a decision around the need for a school in this community. Didn't occur. I still am not sure it fully occurred this evening. I'm still not fully convinced that the school district has any of the resources to build a district school in this community. And I candidly applaud the work of private citizens to get a school, a public school, into Sterling Ranch, because my instinct and my sense is that without that, there would not be a school on the horizon for a very long time, and we have seen that. But it's not about my instincts, it's about the legal approval criteria, which I do believe have been met. I will agree with my colleagues. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that motion carries unanimously. So with that, the next land use meeting public hearing will be held on Tuesday, December 9th, 2025 at 2:30 p.m. We are adjourned.